Good morning. Good evening, folks. Welcome to SKTV. Welcome to today's show. Welcome to today's edition. Let's share the show. As you're quite aware, let's share the show. As you're quite aware, we're playing host to Master Washington today. So let's share the show, please. Welcome and welcome. As you come on, let us know where you're following us from, please. And we will let you in by recognizing you. Let's share the show, please. Let's share the show, please. Okay, Mustafa is watching us from Chubal. That's on the old road. Let's share the show. Please and please, let's share the show. Please help us to share the show. Please and please. As you join us, help us share the show. That's all we're asking. Today is Saturday, the 13th of April, 2024. Let's share the show. Please, thank you. Let's share the show. Good afternoon, good evening, good day, folks. Amnesty Bernard. Let's share the show. Let's share the show, please. I am seeing myself here. Folks, let's share the show. Please. Good afternoon, good evening. Jeremiah Collette is watching us from Mississippi Street in Greenville, Sano County. Okay, Jeremiah, thank you. Thank you so much for following us, Jeremiah. Well, Margaret, I don't know if that's a compliment or that is a question. I don't know. You have to clarify to me. Annabelle is watching us from Redford, Michigan. Okay. Redford, Michigan. Thank you for following us, Annabelle. We appreciate you. Thank you and thank you. Let's go up to see who's there. Samuel Hollywood is following us from the East Coast, South New Jersey, Ocean City. Okay, Samuel, thank you. Thank you for following us. We appreciate. Thank you and thank you. Folks, let's share the show and let's invite someone. Today we play host to Commissioner Massa Washington. Today we play host to Commissioner Massa Washington. Let's share the show. Okay, Margaret, thank you for the compliment. Appreciate it. Let's share the show. A lot of things happening. So let's share the show in the meantime. Yo, let's share the show. I'm talking in a elaborate way. My people, yo, let's share the show. In my elaborate voice. Yo, let's share the show. My people, yo, let's share the show. Folks, welcome. Folks, welcome. Margaret, I don't know how to answer that question. You already said that I do share the show on time. I do start it on time. So why are you asking? Steve, you are always on time. So I don't know. But let's share the show. Margaret, you want to do us a favor? Let's share the show. Uh, let's share the show. In fact, I'm not even answering you again. Because you have not told us where you're following us from. So you will not be recognized. Until you can follow instructions, you will not be recognized. So, hey, sorry about that's what it is. Che Bayoga Joe is watching us from Iowa. Mustafa Palo is watching us from Chubo. Ooh. Ernestine Bernard is watching us from Atlanta, Georgia. I think the rest of the people I've called the names before. Okay, you follow us from Mount Point. Well, we'll start the show when we can. But most times I Sekou, myself, and the rest of the team will try to be on time as much as we can be. I hope that helps answer your question. Roger is following us from Knoxville, Tennessee. Rebecca Gisu is following us from Charlotte, North Carolina. Very good place to be. Charlotte, North Carolina. You know, your Charlotte, Atlanta, Georgia, and Denver, Colorado. You have a very, very, fortunately, sadly, very confusing airports. North Carolina airport is big. If your gate is on the other end, you got to run to the other end of it. You stretch. Same thing with Denver, Colorado. Um, Sometimes you got to take the train and go down the tunnel. Same thing with Atlanta, Georgia. You got to take the train. So these airports can be very confusing, very big, humongous, gigantic, very beautiful as well. Very beautiful. Don't get me wrong. Very beautiful. Very beautiful. You know, airports. Somebody said I should put it there. Atlanta, Georgia, get a beautiful airport, but the airport just B for nothing. Just humongous, gigantic, large, exponential. Okay, Monk, my man, what is going on?
What's up?
My man, what's going on? What's going on?
Not much. Another day to be alive. Another great day to be alive. As
Yeah,
always.
today is Saturday, my man. As always, like it's a beautiful Saturday we are live. How the weather look like in Minnesota?
The weather is perfect, man. We'll take it any day. I think we're getting much closer to the spring. I mean, not it, yeah, the spring.
It's perfect.
Diving midway through the summer now. We'll soon be going to summer. You know, summer's in June anyway. June. June what? When is official first day of the summer? I know from June 21st to September 23rd, right? Is it summer, right? If I'm not
Well,
mistaken.
if we go by that officially, like you said, if we go by that, Minnesota starts to get cold sometimes late August, early no late July, early August. Sometimes you guys start to experience snow and the rough weather or whatever it is. So let's be honest, we
Yeah,
can't keep
from the
y'all.
21st of June to the 23rd of September, that's the summer solstice, according to geography. That's the exact day. I think Roger Gibson just said it. June 21st should be the official start of summer.
Yeah, but yeah, but you can't hold it at that.
Only like what?
You can't hold it at that because your weather can flip flop, my man.
Yeah, our weather can flip flop. Don't forget, we are closer to the North Pole. We are just below Canada, and Canada is just under Russia, and
Right?
Russia is just closer to Alaska. So for us in the Midwest, we have fluctuation in weather activities because that's just the part of the world we find ourselves as compared to other part of America. You know, America is comprises of 4 time zone. It's almost like a continent in size. It's very huge. So for us in the Midwest, like North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota, Iowa, our weather will never be stable no matter what. Whether it's global warming or whether it's natural causes, our weather will continue to fluctuate. So we accept that. That's something that beyond our control. So we just live with it and take it one day at a time. That's all you can do.
Yeah, we'll take it one day at a time, like you said. But Mark, what's going on in terms of uh politics, especially in the U.S.? Your boy will be in court in Manhattan, in New York.
We call it the
Uh,
lawfare.
no, 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 no. Let me wait now. Let me hold you now.
Yeah.
For the hush money, back in the day, he paid for sexual activities, and he decided to hush it before the election. Boom, the news came out. So what say you? Your boy will be in court. And according to him, he will testify. What say you?
Well, first of all, that particular case was dropped since 2018 by the Southern District Court of Manhattan. But we all know it's lawfare, like I keep telling you. That case had no merit. Matter of fact, the star witness, which is Michael Cohen, he lied. So he's not even a credible witness because he committed perjury. But we are getting closer to election, so they got to resuscitate those legal means because there will be no COVID this time around. So we all know it's politics. That case is going nowhere. I told you that they won in Georgia of no doubt natural death. They won in DC about insurrection. We know First Amendment. It will die. We all know these things are just distraction to taking off the campaign trail to get 4 or 5 cases going. You're thinking that they can influence the election. That's
Mark,
why
are
it's
you there?
not about the law. Hello, you hearing me?
Yeah, I hear you now. But Mark, there is no way the case could have been dropped as
There was
we.
no merit to that case since 2018. Why they resuscitated it? That's the question you asked.
There was a merit because Cohen went to jail, and the court and the second person who was not named at the time. The document was we were still under the cover and it shielded. Um, at the time, but we'll get to that conversation anyway. We don't want to hold our guests too long. But just to say, the second person, the co-conspirator, the second person was not named until, in fact, they sealed it on the court record. However, when and if President Trump left the presidency, they would have come after him for similar thing, my man. So we can't
If
just say
the second person was such an important piece to the case, why would they put Stephanie Clifford ahead? Why? It's like you're trying to invent a crime against a guy that never committed a crime. That's just why it is. From one
okay.
thing to another, it
Oh,
keep going. But you know, one thing I understand if it is, I mean, it was so funny when the media had to work here when Joe Biden went and raised 25 million. Were all on breaking news, and you hosted that event with Bill Clinton and Barack Obama. Can you imagine 3 presidents? and it raised 25 million. But Donald Trump raised 50.5 million, and not a single news were able to carry that particular or single news outlet.
Okay, well, let's not waste time. Let's bring our guests in as much as we're waiting for the guys from Liberia to join us. Let's bring our guests on really quick. I think the guest is still getting prepared. Commissioner Washington, good afternoon, good evening, good morning from our end. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me on the show. Brazilian monk Cyrus, how are you? It's good to have you
Yeah.
on the show as well. My nephew, it's been a while.
Yes. For disclaimer, Ente Masa is my auntie. So I will try not to slip to say Ente Masa. I'm trying to keep it professional, but yes, it's good to see you. How are you? How have you been? How's everything? How's the weather on the East Coast? How have you
Well,
been?
the weather is behaving today is actually it's a typical spring weather, meaning that it is not hot, it is not too cold, and we have a spring shower, like little drops of rain. They call it a spring shower. So it's really nice. It's really nice weather today. It's like uh middle level weather.
Hmm. Okay, well, it seems to be everybody warming up or gearing up for the summer. But for some of the people who don't know you, there's some new people who joined SKTV or the last since the last time you were here with us. You were not a stranger. But do you mind introducing yourself to them and so forth so that we can get this conversation started?
Sure. So my name is Masa Emilia Washington. I'm a Liberian journalist originally. I worked as a journalist for many, many, many years. If you were following Liberia and the news in Liberia, way back those days, including up to the war years and immediate after the war years, you have heard of me because I was the only local female who was reporting from factional territories and also assessing the effect of the war on Liberians in the sub-region. I went to the Ivory Coast. I reported from Danane, Abidjan, other parts of the Ivory Coast. I went to Nigeria. I reported from Nigeria. And then I also went to Ghana. I reported from Ghana, basically the Bujumbura refugee camp. I currently live in the United States of America. I work officially as a clinical social worker and a mental health specialist. I also do a mental health therapist. I'm a therapist too, as well as a program director for the social work program. That's what pays the bills here. And I do freelance journalism. And once you are a member of the Inky fraternity, you're always a member. So I have my bachelor's in the journalism, print journalism, and I have my master's from Temple University in clinical social work. I also serve as one of 9 commissioners on the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Liberia, the TRC. And if you follow the TRC process then, or maybe after, or maybe now, you would have heard about me. I happen to be one of those Liberians and also one of those commissioners who is really vocal about how I see things. I am not shy about expressing myself. So you probably would have heard about me, maybe some good, maybe some bad, but that's me. And I'm glad to be here. As you all know, this week has been a really, really hot week for Liberia in terms of what's happening with the country. I mean, it's just like so much has been going on. So much has been going on. But basically, I've been intensely following the issue of the War Crimes Court and the signing of the resolution that was passed in March last month by first the lower house, the House of Representatives, and just last week we had the House of Senate also endorse that legislation. So I will leave it here now because Moses, I'm sure you have it on your agenda.
Yes, yes. We have we got plenty of questions to ask you, plenty of things to talk. Um, let's start off with a quick summary. How did this whole TRC thing, how did it come about? And is it still in play or not? Quickly.
Yeah, okay. So first, The TRC was actually birthed at the Accra Comprehensive Peace Conference on Liberia, that is popularly known as the CPA, in August of 2003. So Liberians from civil society, politicians in all walks of life, including our friends from the international community, and also members of warring factions, warlords and other people who were representing the different warring factions, met in Accra, Ghana in August. And by the 18th of August in 2003, they signed this comprehensive peace agreement, which is the final peace agreement that actually broke up peace for Liberia. And the document is a compact one. And in that document, one of the most important issues that was raised was how Liberia will proceed as a country coming out of war. And people at the conference at the time, the participants, include our colleagues in the international community, they talked about rebirthing a new Liberia. What should the new Liberia be like? How will it look like? Because we know that during the war years, a lot of things changed. Our civil institutions broke down. There were several warring factions. And so people were concerned about how Liberia proceed, what will happen with the peace and the security, what's about the civilian population, what's about human rights. So those were all the issues that were discussed. And one of those institutions, there were several institutions that were mandated. Basically, I think there were 3 or 4 institutions. One, it was the Governance Commission. The Governance Commission was mandated by the CPA of 2003 to be established. So the Governor Commission was later headed by Dr. Amos Sawyer. It has 6 commissioners. So that commission was to draft policies that the government and parastatus agencies of Liberia will go by to run the country. It was the Governance Commission. And then the National Human Rights Commission was also mandated to be established by the CPA. And we have the Human Rights Commission now. And the Human Rights Commission is basically, in summary, charged with concerning itself with human rights issues, of Liberians in the country. And the TRC, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, was one of those accountability institutions and justice institution that was also proposed by the CPA. So that's how the TRC came about. Okay. Yeah. That's how the TRC came about. And after the CPA meeting, everybody went back home. So when they came back to Liberia, the national legislature, in fact, they had a civil society working group that was overseen and monitored by the United Nations. You said there were several international partners who were part of that civil society working group, but the working group was basically comprised of Liberians from different walks of life. You have youth represented, you have women represented, you had the traditional council represented, you have the religious people represented, including the Muslim Council, all of that. So they wanted it to be a broad base so that all Liberians will feel inclusive, because all Liberians have a stake in what happens to the country. So that transitional justice working group drafted the TRC Act. And the TRC Act was passed by the legislature at the time. This was in 2004. And interestingly, when you look at the TRC Act, in fact, this is a copy of the TRC Act. This is an original copy of the Act. As you can see, it's a very simple document. It has only 24 pages. Very simple document, but extremely powerful. This TRC Act gave, when I went on the TRC to work as a commissioner and I went through the Act, I was really, really shocked at the kind of powers that the TRC Act gave the TRC and commissioners and also staff who are going to be working doing the TRC work. And one of the provisions in the TRC Act says that at the end of its work, the TRC will compile all of its report, everything it did, and it will make determination on different aspects of a society, including for accountability, and it will recommend prosecution. It also said that the TRC will apply amnesty where applicable. But child soldiers, anyone who fought the war, who was determined to have been a child soldier, automatically qualifies for amnesty. And the people who passed this TRC Act in the national legislature at the time, you had people like George Dewey. George Dewey was the speaker of the legislature at the time when they passed this TRC Act that gave the commission so much power, including accountability, including the right to recommend prosecution. It talked about economic crimes and everything. It even said that the TRC could subpoena anybody, any institution for records that it needed to do its work. And then also that if people or institutions rather refuse to cooperate with the TRC through proper channel could bounce to any office or anybody home, of course, with a proper search warrant, and demand those documents and search the premises. So whole lot of powers are given the TRC here. A lot of warlords, the legislature coming out of war, it had a lot of warlords there. Imagine George Dewey, who was known as the butcher of Monrovia because he led a death squad and was killing people all over the place. George Dewey was speaker and they passed this TRC Act. Not me, I was not there. So commissioners on the TRC, once we were commissioned, we did our job. And this TRC Act served as our constitution because every now and then we had to refer to it so that we are guided as to what we were expected or mandated to do.
Okay. So you are saying, by essence, you are saying the fact that the TRC were printed in handbill, that means it's legal. The Supreme Court or nobody else can go and take it away or whatever it is, because we know that once the laws are printed in handbills, like you have it over there, a copy of it, that means it's legitimate. Nothing will be on the hustle and so forth. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. Because the way, again, I'm not a lawyer, let me make full disclosure. The way it works is that when you draft a bill or a legislation and send to the national legislature, when they pass it, they send it on to the Senate. The Senate review it and the Senate passes it. They send it to the president. The president signs it and they send it to the Minister of Foreign Affairs to be printed into handbills.
Right.
So that's the process for that particular law to be legal and binding. So the TRC Act went through all those processes.
Okay. So that means the work that you guys did was legitimate, legal, and binding.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. Absolutely. Let me ask you another question. The monk will come in here if he has a question, because I know we're establishing the basis here. We're trying to get how were the commissioners selected, based on what? Because some people might claim, with biases and different. What was the factor that they had to take into consideration to select the commissioners?
Commissioners were selected based on a robust vetting process. And by that, I mean that, again, the international community, the UN, ECOWAS, USAID, the EU, and other organizations concerned about human rights and have best practice human rights experience, along with different sectors of the Liberian society. Don't forget, this is a Liberian thing. So everything was done with Liberians so that Liberians can establish ownership, so that it doesn't look like the TRC was a foreign concept that was imposed on Liberians. So again, on the vetting process to select commissioners, you had the youth representing, the Liberian youth. You had, somebody representing the youth. You had someone representing the women. You had the Interreligious Council. At the time, the Interreligious Council comprised of the churches and the mosques, because during the early days of the war, people were trying to be devious and push this issue of Muslims versus Christians. They were trying to start a hold a war between the two groups. So thank God, our Muslim community and also the Christian community, they saw it immediately and they came together and they formed the Interreligious Council. So the Interreligious Council was also represented on this vetting committee. Then you had one person from USAID, which represented the Americans. Then you had one person from ECOWAS. In fact, the person who represented ECOWAS was the ECOWAS ambassador at the time, Ambassador Sisi. Then you had somebody from the EU representing the European Union. And so it was a robust vetting process. And what they did was they sent out public bulletin. They published a list of requirements that they needed in people who will be recommended to be on the TRC. For example, one of the requirements was that the person has to have had no warring background experience, meaning that they didn't participate in the war, they were not a member of any faction, they were not a member of the AFL, because the AFL later on became a faction. So they were not a member of it. So they were not a member of any group that participated in the war and that most likely hurt people. Two, at least commissioners had to at least have a bachelor's or first degree. You had to be at least educated a little bit to understand complex issues and all of that, because you were going to be dealing with human rights law and stuff like that. So they published that in all the newspapers in Monrovia, and it was published in the media for 1 week. Then they put it on the air. Then they put it in the vernaculars. They had radio announcers in the different tribes, in the different vernaculars, announcing, reading this list, telling the Liberian people, we want you to send in the names of people who you think meet this requirement, because they will serve on the TRC. So after they did all of that, then it was the public that sent in names. Like, I wasn't in Liberia then. I had left and I was here in the United States. But I received nomination from several groups, from the media, from women's group, from the school. I remember it was one kid at the time, I think he called me, I didn't know him, and he said he was on the student council in Haywood Mission School, and he had heard of my work because he lived on the over. He knew me, I didn't know him, and he had called and said, we would like to nominate you because we want you to come home to help, because they have, they knew of my work. So we were nominated, all commissioners or everybody whose names came on that list were nominated by a different aspect of the community. And it went through a robust vetting process. So for example, I think the first set of list, I think they had like 120 some percent. I'm not giving an exact figure now. I may be a little bit off. And then after that, they shortlisted it came back down to several. And then it came to 35. And then it finally came to 16. So by the time it came to 16 names, it was assumed that those 16 people, any of them could have been commissioner. They needed only 9. So what they did was, as respect to the office, because the government was not involved, because they didn't want government influence. At that time, Judith Bryan was the interim president. So once it came down to the 16 names, to show respect for the office of the presidency, they sent the list to Judith Bryan and said, of these 16 people, choose any 9, because right now, any 16 of them are qualified because they've been through the extensive in the president office. They had a small committee and they finally chose the 9, and I was one of the 9 that they chose. So that's how TRC commissioners were selected to be on the TRC. Nobody appointed us, who was selected. And Ellen Johnson, so after Judith Bryan finally, selected the 9 from the 16, then her tenure was over. When Ellen came on board, she inaugurated us. She didn't select us. The selection was already done, and the list was waiting for her on her desk. When she came, she just had a commissioning ceremony and gave us our certificate of commission to say, well, the Liberian people have selected you. You're going to be doing this work. So Ellen did that.
Okay. So basically, Ellen commissioned you guys.
Yes.
Okay, great. Mark, any question or any concern? Because we're coming here to the other aspect and the juicy aspect of the conversation. Mark.
For me, I'm not looking at the composition of the TRC because I read that document from top to bottom. There were certain things that caught my attention within the TRC recommendation and their findings. Let me just read a quick excerpt. Maybe she will understand. I mean, she will try to get the point I'm making here. Let me just give one instance, because we're talking about accountability and justice. When you talk about the findings of the TRC, the very first thing is, it almost like the TRC was speaking with both sides of her mouth. It's like at a certain point, when you read a document, it's that you are justifying the reason why the war occurred. And then secondly, you want to hold people accountable. At a certain point in time, even the Supreme Court, they kind of dismiss or recommendation of the TRC on grounds that they were unconstitutional. One point was the issue of banning certain people from holding public office, including Madam Sally herself. Those were part of the TRC recommendation, and the Supreme Court said it was unconstitutional. My thing here is what I'm looking at here, the question I want to ask, because when you look at the people who are calling for accountability and justice, most of our international partners, there's what the TRC recommendation said. I mean, the findings. It said external state actors in Africa, North America, and Europe participated, supported, aided, and abetted, conspired, and instigated violence, war, and regime change for political, economic, foreign policy advantages and gains. So technically, they are saying that even the America and the U.S. Congress or some of the major state actors that want accountability, they somehow supported and participated in the war. How do you balance the two? That the very same people that are calling for accountability were those that instigated the war, and it was provided in the TRC report. Hello?
Moses, are you waiting? You waiting to hear from me?
Yeah, we're waiting. What's the reaction to that question?
Okay, I don't think it was a question, it was actually a statement, I think. So here's what happened. When you have a work such as the TRC and what it did, first let's establish that everybody is not going to be pleased about everything. Some people will like some aspect of the work, some people will not like some aspect of the work. People have the opinion as to how they think things should be. But what Brazilian monk is saying should be Cyrus, right? I can call you Cyrus?
Yeah, either way.
Yeah.
I'll take either one.
Okay. So what Cyrus is saying is that because the TRC recognized that there were people and institutions that helped to incite the war or fuel the war or took part in the war, therefore the TRC coming up with recommendations for accountability seems hypocritical. I don't think so. That's what we were asked to do. That's what we're asked to do. For example, President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf was named in the TRC report on the sanction list. But Ellen Johnson Sirleaf was the president who commissioned us. She commissioned commissioners. So, and her office, her government also partially funded the commission. As a matter of fact, her government funded the secretariat. Actual programming was funded by the international community. The international community said they would fund programming, and the government must fund the secretariat, meaning salaries or logistics and stuff like that, because they wanted for the Liberian people and the government to establish ownership. So, because Ellen was president now, and she commissioned us, and then she was funding partially the commission, including the secretariat, should we then have not put her in the report if we thought that she had a role? So it was a delicate balance. What we tried to establish on the TRC as much as possible was the truth. So, and everywhere the TRC went, even our international partners, they hailed the TRC for its truth-telling process. There may have been other aspects or other processes that some people think we didn't do so well, but when it comes to the truth, one of our major things was we wanted to establish the truth. Because when you establish the truth, it is more important when people have to account, because there is not a single person who has been named in the TRC report who said the TRC lied on me. The only thing people can say generally is, well, I was not the only person who did stuff. I took part in the war, I did this, but other people, my name is in the TRC report, but other people's names not there. But well, that was left with the commission and its processes. So the point I'm making to Sarah's comment is that never mind that the TRC identified some of the root causes of the conflict that we were asked to do. But because we identified some of the root causes of the conflict and we were able to pinpoint, some of those who were responsible, did that mean that we couldn't recommend or do our work by recommending prosecution? Because our mandate said we were also supposed to investigate, do determination, and recommend. Now, some people thought that the commission should have said, let bargain be bargains. No, the TRC, I read the entire act, 24 pages. It never asked us to consider that bargain be bargains. There was specific instruction they wanted us to do. They wanted us to make recommendations for reparations. They wanted us to make recommendations for psychosocial. They wanted us to make institutional recommendations for governance to see how the country can be better. We even have recommendations for how to handle land dispute and all of that. So yes, Cyrus, we identify some of the root causes of the problem. We identify some of the actors, but we also recommended that some of these very people needed to be, sanctioned or needed to have some form of accountability. That was
Okay.
what was asked of us.
Okay.
Well, I got a follow-up question to that. That's what I'm
Sure.
saying. How do you draw the line? Because like the instance you just gave that Madam Salif, in as much as she was one of those mentioned or highlighted in the report, she was actually the one that funded the secretariat, like you said. So in this case, technically saying that she got a pass or she would get a pass if there was war and economic crime court in Liberia by virtue of the recommendation from the TRC. And my thing is because I know we are an aid-driven country. Most of our fundings come from international partners. So if you are making recommendation or saying you want to point out the fact by saying or external state actors, whether it's North America or Europe, they participated for their own economic gain, then how are you going to implement the whole TRC? I mean, like based on your own finding, are you saying too that the same people that are calling for transparency and accountability and justice, are they going to face the full weight of the law? That's just why I'm asking, because if you give the scenario, Madam Sally, then you're almost like saying, okay, in as much as she was mentioned, but she was the one that provided funding, so technically maybe she could get a pass. Is that what you're literally saying, or you just giving your
What do you mean get a pass? She was listed on the sanction list. You see, what you need to understand is from okay, if I were to analyze your logic, it would say, well, because Ellen Selly funded you guys, so you should have given her a pass. As a matter of fact, you
No,
should
I'm not saying
actually
you are giving her a pass. I'm just saying, is she going to get
no.
a... Okay, go ahead.
Actually, listen, actually, you should actually be commending the commission for its courage to even list the president. Because don't forget, she was a popular president at the time. The entire international community was eating out of her hands. She was the first elected female president of Liberia. Okay? And she was also partially funding the commission in terms of the secretariat. But we were still brave enough to say, no, we want to be fair to everybody. This president is not squeaky clean. While she's president now, she may be trying to do some good things, but hey, she was also part and parcel of the problem. So what did we do? We listed her on the sanction list. So I mean, logically, you would think that, wow, what a commission, what bunch of brave people, the people who gave you your salary, that the same people who you put on sanction list. Yes, it's because we were serious about our work. And that's what the TRC Act says. So we went according to the Act. We didn't consider our own personal thing or whatsoever. So I would think that instead of making this an issue that if the war crimes court come, we may give Madam Sadi a pass. In the first place, the TRC has done this work. Let's just establish that. The TRC was asked to do its work and present a final report, continue recommendations. We have done our work. The final report of the TRC was presented to the people of Liberia on June 30th, 2009. A copy of 2 sets, in fact, was given to the president's office. A set was taken to the legislature, and a set was taken to the Senate and everywhere else. So our work is over. So all this other post-TRC questions that you're asking me is not for us. When the War Crimes Code is established, even though the War Crimes Code is going to be derived from the recommendations of the TRC, but it's another transitional justice process that's going to continue. So it's like part 2. We're done with part 1. So all this question you're asking, well, she may get a pass in the War Crimes Code. I think the question is unfair because we will not know until the code is established. We don't even know who all will be on the court in terms of who will be the judges, who will be running the secretariat, who will be doing the investigation. We don't even know. So you preempting and jumping the gun and trying to fault us indirectly for something.
No, I'm not faulting you guys. I'm just giving you a proposition here that is possible.
You're trying to be critical about something that has not even happened yet, that is not even taking place. We're still discussing it.
So a follow-up question to Monk Concern. Commissioner Washington. Are you saying in essence that your role as commissioners was to ensure that you collected the facts along with the evidences available at the time and presented to those who are close with the authority to take actions. But you guys are not necessarily the ones that were taking actions.
No, that was not our mandate.
Okay.
That was not our mandate. Our mandate was to investigate what happened in the war, go through our different processes and how we gather the information and everything. At the end of the day, make our determination and do a comprehensive final report. And that report will contain recommendations, including for prosecution, for amnesty, and different aspects of governance. That was our job. Our job stopped there, ended right there. Now, the TRC Act, Article 10, on a reporting requirement, Article 10 of the TRC Act on a reporting requirement said, let me just read to you quickly.
Sure.
Okay, Article 10, reporting and recommendations, right? Section 43. The TRC shall submit a final report containing recommendations at the end of its tenure to the National Legislature and have key findings of the report published simultaneously with its presentation in at least 3 local dailies in pursuit of. We did that. Section 44 says the report shall be detailed on all aspects of the TRC's work, investigations, hearings, findings, and recommendations for prosecution. And we did that. And it says the TRC shall further recommend for amnesty persons who so qualify under terms and conditions referred to in Section 26, reparation for victims, specific actions of government to be taken in furtherance of its finding, blah, 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 blah. And it says here, the Independent National Human Rights Commission shall be seized with the responsibility to ensure that all recommendations contained in a report of the TRC are implemented and that civil society organizations are moral guarantors of the process. So what it is saying is that the TRC had done its work and its recommendation, and it is saying the National Human Rights Commission that was established is now supposed to pick up the recommendations and lobby to ensure it is implemented. It didn't say that they must implement it. It said they must ensure it's implemented, meaning that they're going to be in touch with the government, the president office, asking them, trying to find out, are they going to implement this? That was the work of the National Human Rights Commission. And then it also said the head of state, this is Section 48 of Article 10, it says the head of state, which is the president, shall report to the National Legislature within 3 months of receipt of the report of the TRC and on a quarterly basis thereafter as to the implementation of the Commission's recommendations. All recommendations shall be implemented. Where the implementation of any recommendation has not been complied with, the legislature shall require the head of state to show cause for such non-compliance. So it is saying here that after the TRC work and the final report is presented, including recommendations, the TRC phase of our work is over. But the Human Rights Commission pick up the advocacy, and the president office, the head of state, supposed to implement the recommendations. And within 3 months of receiving the TRC report, the president is supposed to report to the National Legislature and give a progress report on what it is doing or what mechanism it was putting in place to implement the recommendations. And thereafter, every quarter, the president is supposed to report to the National Legislature on progress made towards the implementation of the TRC recommendation. And the Act says, whereas if the president is not doing it, the National Legislature can cite the president, can call the president and say, please give us an update on how far you're going with the implementation of the recommendations. So you see, the implementation of the TRC recommendations, we did not have that authority. We did not have that mandate. Our mandate was to do the work, do the report, put the recommendations, and pass it on.
So then quickly before we move on from this, the foundation, the basics you've laid here today to provide the simplest understanding of the functions of the commissioners, the role of the legislature, the executive, and other branches of government. My question to you is, so then how do you reconcile members of the TRC who disagree with the final reports, wherein other perpetrators and some Liberians have relied on it to use it as an excuse to fault the final findings of the TRC? What do you say?
Okay, every time this question asks is it puzzles me. The reason it puzzles me is because sometimes our people tend to want to always nitpick on what the team may be a negative of anything. We don't really look at the bigger process. People need to understand that this was a pluralistic democratic process, meaning that we were 9 commissioners and the TRC Act says we were equal partners. So even though we voted and we have our own chairman, but they say the chairman was the first amongst equals. The chairman did not supervise us. We operated on the basis of committees, all the OHA committees, including the chairman. And every morning we met and we discussed our different progress and all of that. So what happened here is that it was a democratic process. People can agree to disagree. You're talking about 9 commissioners, 9 Liberians from diverse background. So we had, in demand. You had me, a journalist. You had John Stewart, a political commentator. You had lawyers. You had a housewife. One of the commissioners was a housewife. She was having her first job. You had a nurse. One of the Commissioner Umusila, was a nurse. You had an engineer, Gerald Coleman. So, and then different ages and different experience.
Right.
That's what it was meant to be, because the TRC was not meant to be a one-cut cloth, one-size-fit-all, because they wanted it to reflect the diversity of Liberia as much as possible. And we were from different backgrounds, different upbringing, different age, we grew up in different parts of the country, and we went to different schools, we had different, interests and all of that. But the commonality there was that none of us should have been or perceived to have been part of the conflict, meaning that we were supporting group to hurt people and all that kind of stuff. Now, the TRC Act says that commissioners in our deliberation, when we deliberate, we can disagree, because we have to disagree. We're all diverse people. We see things differently. But at the end of the day, this act was our constitution. But the TRC Act also says that when we discuss and we do our work, commissioners should try to reach a consensus as much as possible. It's like you have the Supreme Court, where you have 5 justices of the Supreme Court. All of them do not agree. Sometimes you have dissenting opinion. Even in the United States, it happens. Okay? That's very good for our democracy. But the TRC Act says, whereas if we could not reach a consensus on any issue, then we should go to a vote and then 2/3. And that's the process we follow. Because commissioners did not always agree. It was going to be completely crazy to think that 9 of us were just going to agree on everything, I don't see how it would have truly reflected the experience or the collective experience of the Liberian people. So that was not a minor at all. It was a plus. And also, it was the right of the 2 commissioners to dissent the report. It was their right. Okay? This is not the first time that a Truth Commission has dissent. The South African Truth Commission, everybody likes to talk about the South African Truth Commission because it was the first TRC, and everybody was excited about it, and it was a big TRC, and because they have a lot of resources, the country is big, it's rich, and the country is well known internationally. So everybody talked about the South African TRC, but nobody has studied it. I mean, we studied it, Commissioner. We had to study it. We went to South Africa on a study tour. We studied the TRC. Even the South African TRC, with all its sophistication, resources, and everything, do you guys know that there were commissioners who provided a dissenting report? Not all the commissioners signed the report. Not all the commissioners agree on the report. So they had the majority report, and then they had the minority report. So the 2 commissioners that did not agree with us in the end, we asked them to please write the minority report so that the Liberian people could read it. Also, when the Liberian people are reading the main report, the Liberian people can read that on the report to understand why they were disagreeing with certain things, where they never got there. But it's a perfectly normal process. That's how it was meant. It was not meant to be or so say one, so say all. So it is not a negative at all. It's a plus.
Okay. So you are saying, in other words, you're saying, just for the layman, that the fact that a couple of commissioners agreed and 2 disagreed, that creates an equilibrium or balance.
Exactly. In fact, at the end of the day, we started off with 9 commissioners, right? And Bishop Kula, who was the oldest commissioner at the time, when Bishop Kula was vetted on the TRC, he was already in retirement because he had worked with the Methodist Archdiocese for years and years and years. So he was already in retirement, and he was with the Methodist Conference in Sierra Leone, helping out there. And when he was recruited, he came home. But very early on, less than 1 year in the process, Bishop Kuda resigned for health reason, the job he needed, he was already in retirement. He wanted to go back in retirement, and he was never replaced because the TRC was a time constrained commission.
Okay.
So we remain at 8. And out of the 8 commissioners, 6 commissioners signed a report and 2 did not sign a report. So we had a majority that the TRC Act asks for. The TRC Act says, whereas you are unable to meet a majority consensus, then go to a vote and you must give the 2/3. So when you have 8 commissioners, 2 dissenting and 6 agreeing, we have more than the 2/3 that the TRC Act asks for.
True. Okay. Well, Monk, do you have any other question before we pivot to the current and prevailing situations at hand in Liberia?
I have another question in this particular segment.
Sure.
Apart from the TRC doing findings and recommended, they were also giving certain mandate. On May 12, 2005, the Liberian Transitional Legislative Assembly enacted this into law. And at the same time, you have the Supreme Court that says certain provisions of the TRC were unconstitutional. I want to ask Ms. Washington or Mistress Washington, are you aware of any other provision other than barring people from holding offices like the leg of Madam Selective and others? Are you aware of any other provision within the TRC?
We dream very big, and sorry, better late than never.
Go ahead, please. Go ahead, Monk. Sorry for the interruption from.
Yeah, let me repeat that question. I said on May 12, 2005, the Liberian Transitional Legislative Assembly enacted this TRC stuff into law, right? Okay. And when something is enacted into law, it means that, when lawmaker pass things, it become permanent. And you have the Supreme Court saying that certain provision within the TRC report were unconstitutional. Mounting are you aware of any other provision that were deemed unconstitutional by the Supreme Court apart from barring people from holding certain public offices within 30 years?
Not that I know of. In the first place, let me just put it in proper perspective because I don't know where you're deriving at. We came out with several accountability listing. Okay, so we came out with recommendations for an extraordinary criminal court, which is the war crimes. Then we came up with a domestic criminal court. Then we came up with economic crimes. Then we came up with lustration. Lustration is the sanction list. So the lustration here is saying that these people who are on the lustration listing, which is a sanction listing, and don't forget our process, we were not the court. So our process was based upon the preponderance of evidence, meaning that more likely than not, all the people that we name on different lists in the TRC report, it means that most likely than not, they committed the act that we say they committed. Okay, this is why we recommended to go to court, because we were not a court. So when you go to court now, everybody will go through the proper forensic process, and then they can defend themselves and say, well, the TRCs used the preponderance of evidence and say, they think we did this. But our defense team will provide evidence that we didn't do what the TRC said we done. But in the meantime, the TRC also did a robust investigation. So all of those will be available for people as well. I just wanted to say that. So the illustration list was the list of people who the TRC determined during our process that they play significant role in the destruction of Liberia that led to the murders or the suffering of other people. But however, for example, the President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, when people came and testified, they put her places. They said she was an original member of the NPFL. She was the international fundraiser. She raised funds for the NPFL to be able to do its work. And we know that the funding that were raised by she and WOU and other people, they use it to buy guns and they use it to buy drugs. They recruited child soldiers. They drug them to go and fight the war, blah, 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 blah. But notwithstanding, not a single person came to the TRC and say, I was there, and the president gave order for them to execute somebody. Or the president, I was there when the president killed somebody. So not a single person. So with something like that, you cannot put the president on the prosecution listing because prosecution is about evidence. You understand my point? And we work with what we have. So that's why the president on the sanction list. So we said, well, much as we don't have people who are come and say the president killed this person or she did this, but we have enough evidence that show that she was one of the mastermind of the war. They all started the war. She helped to raise funds for them to get the guns. You know, young children were given drugs by the money that she raised. They bought drugs for them to fight. So she was part of it. So we put her on the sanction list so that people like her and others, they can stay out of public office because they have done enough to destroy the country. That was what the sanction list was about. And the sanction list speaks to the TRC mandate that says we should also consider those who are politically responsible. So that was a political responsible list, the sanction list. The list with people recommended for war crimes and stuff, where the list with the warring faction, people who witnesses and others came and in the statement taking, they say, yes, I was there, this person killed this person, or this person was a warlord, we know, and all of that. But the sanction list was basically that list that speaks for the political responsibility of what happened is in the TRC report. So that's what this was about. So when everybody knows, it's an open secret that when the TRC final report was released, it immediately went into a frenzy. People did not look at the TRC recommended more than 200 recommendations. The former Kenyan Human Rights Commissioner, I remember when the TRC report came out, he went on the BBC and said this was the best report he has seen of any TRC. And he called it lackluster report because of the concern about accountability. And we have more than 200 recommendations, okay? But the report, the politicians, some of them who were in the report, they connive with warlords to fight the report and kill the report, and so they politicized the report. And they were all over the place paying people to be against the report, paying people to demonstrate against the report, and that's how they took the report to the Temple of Justice. Now, the president was one of those who took the report to the Temple of Justice because her name was on it, and she wanted to run again. So it was a political move. It was not that she took the sanction list to the Supreme Court because the TRC lied on her. No, it was all politics. It was all politics. She wanted her name to move on that list. That's what it was all about.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for the clarity. Well, let's transition into folks.
Hey,
if you're just,
I got one more question.
Yes, Mark, I'll count you so you can ask your follow-up. Folks, if you're just following up, we're in conversation here with Commissioner Massa Washington. As many of you can remember or can recall, today we're having a candid conversation about, you know, the whole TRC business, how it came about, the legality of it. Those of you listening to us on the radio, if you're just joining us, we say thank you. Thanks to the leadership of True FM for relaying the program today. Monk, it's up to you. What say you? Monk.
Hello?
Yes, please go ahead.
When you read the Accra Comprehensive Peace Accord of 2003, it was that particular peace accord that gave birth to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, or an act that established them, right? And my second question is, the TRC was not only making findings and recommendations, they were also getting specific mandate. They were almost like working in part and parts of the Accra Comprehensive Accord by making some recommendation. So this issue of amnesty, I want to ask Ms. Washington here or Mrs. Washington, how do you balance because I heard some lawmaker making the case that they were giving amnesty. I guess they be making reference to the Comprehensive Accra Peace Accord. Now, if you look at the work of the TRC in terms of recommendation and the mandate that you guys were giving, were there anywhere in your findings or recommendation that amnesty was supposed to be given to certain individuals based on your own investigative report?
There's an amnesty clause in the TRC recommendations, but I just read it to you guys. I would like for you to please listen keenly. Let me read that again. It says, please,
Can
that's
you please, excuse, can you please, just before you read it, can you please give her that particular, like a section of the document, because I got it here right in front of me.
yeah, but that's what I'm coming to. If you just give me a chance, you will.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
getting to it. Okay. So Article 10 in the TRC mandate, which is actually on page 23, Article 10, under reporting and recommendations. It is actually section 45 of Article 10. It says the TRC should further recommend for amnesty persons who so qualified under terms and conditions referred to in section 26, that is a previous section, and reparations for victims. So it is saying that the TRC on its own, based upon its process, can recommend amnesty for certain individuals. Okay? It never gave a blanket amnesty for adults or people who were deemed to have committed any of the 23 violations of gross human rights that the TRC found in this process. No. The only group of people who had general amnesty were child soldiers. The TRC Act says if an individual is deemed or found to be a child soldier, meaning that we will have to commute the age. We have to investigate when this person was born, whatsoever. And if they found out that that person who was fighting was 18 years and below, that person automatically qualifies for amnesty because they were a child.
Child soldier. Okay. That's
Yes.
a brilliant
So
point.
anybody who was 19 years and above was considered an adult, and you did not have blanket amnesty. However, you could have gotten amnesty based upon the TRC process, based upon commissioners. For example, if commissioners said, well, this person cooperated fully with the process, they gave us a lot of information that helped our work, that even led us to even people who committed even more egregious of violations. And, it's like when you go to court, sometimes there's a plea deed. Sometimes you need some people. You need to give some people, a break for them to be able to cooperate with you so you can get the information you need. Other than that, you're not going to get any information.
Right.
So it was the same strategy that was used. So the TRC Act says, based upon the TRC and its process, the TRC could recommend amnesty for certain individuals. It never gave blanket amnesty for adults. Only those who were considered child soldiers were automatically provided a general amnesty.
So you're saying this is just recommendation, not necessarily the final saying it could be that recommendation could be accepted or not.
Okay, so the TRC Act here says even though it's recommendations, but the TRC Act again under reporting and requirement Article 10, it says here the head of state shall report to the national legislature within 3 months, blah, 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 blah. All recommendations shall be implemented.
Okay.
Here it says all recommendations shall be implemented. So if it says all recommendations shall be implemented, it means that the recommendations are binding.
Okay, that makes sense then. All right, thank you for the clarity and the context here. We want to move on to, since you've laid a foundation in the basis for the TRC Act, the legal arguments to some extent, the legitimizing your role and the role of every other commissioner. My question to you is, you are alive today, thank God. Seeing the signing of the War and Economic Crime Court document by both houses, what is your reaction? What say you? Because some people wanted to see this day. They probably did not live to see this day. What is your reaction? What say you?
Actually, it's a wonderful day for Liberia. It validates the experiences, the narrative, and the stories of pain and suffering that victims said went through at the hands of the perpetrators or the torturers. It is also, I think, it ushers in a new day for how Liberia will proceed in terms of any impunity. Actually, I think the legislature first, signing that document in March, and then followed now by the House of Senate almost unanimously signing. I say almost because it was 29 senators, and 27 out of the 29 senators signed our recommendations, including some of the people who have stars and asterisks to their name in the TRC report as most notorious perpetrator. They even signed a report. So it's a new day for Liberia. I think what is done is it has dealt a million blows to impunity. And Liberians need to take it now and run with it. We need to turn our country around. And I think we have been given a break by this. And it's a good thing when a country has been through the kind and depth of conflict that we have been through. We need to address all those things. So while we're looking at other governance issue, we're looking at issue of the economy, getting jobs for people, or improving the educational sector and all of that. We need to also be looking at seriously the issue of human rights, the issue of putting in protection for people, the issue of establishing guardrails. Guardrails. You know, when you're driving on the interstate and stuff, you have those guardrails. The guardrails are there to help you so that if your car is veering off the main road, if you're lucky, the guardrails can block you from going over in the ditch. We need to establish guardrails as a country and a people coming from that kind of devastating conflict so that in the future, people are protected, so that tomorrow, if I disagree with Moses, if I disagree with Johnson, if I disagree with Cyrus, I would know that we are a society of law and civilized people, that I can't just wipe you out, wipe your family out, and think that nothing will come of it because a precedent had now been established. So this is a good thing for Liberia. I was so excited. I actually made a video. I don't know if you saw my video, Moses. I made a video when because that same the moment they sent out the notification, I got a copy from the Senate Pro Tem office because I'm on the I'm on their Facebook listing or whatsoever, and I was so excited. I made a video first in the morning while the senators were still getting ready to go to work, to deliberate. I made a video appealing to them to please give justice a chance, to please listen to the cries of the victims, and to please put an end to this unending no justice, no peace for Liberia once and for all. And I made that passionately plea. I will not say it was because of my plea that they went ahead and did it. I think they did it because it was the right time. I think they were ready to do it. But that same day, later when I got notification that they had signed and it had the overwhelming endorsement of overwhelming members of the Senate, I made another video actually thanking them, the legislature and the Senate, but basically the heads of the legislature, the speaker, and also the head of the Senate, Honorable Kanga Lawrence, and all justice advocates. And even the people who didn't sign, there were some legislators who didn't sign. All legislators from Nima County didn't sign. Only one person signed, was C.R. Wongbe. I thank him. And even the ones who didn't sign, I said to them, well, they didn't sign. We're not going to war with them. We're hoping that when the process starts for accountability, they will come on board. Because sometimes people have their reasons why they don't embrace something from the beginning, because they have their own doubt. They have the right to question stuff, but hopefully later on, we will come together as a country and have this war crime code, have all these accountability mechanisms in place so that we can become a people respecting the rule of law again. So that when I disagree with you, I can go to the court, I can sue you there, I can find other means to address that disagreement with you, rather than trying to wipe you out and wipe your entire family out. So yeah, this big day for Liberia is dealt a nasty blow to impunity, and I hope we will continue to seize the moment. The war crimes ambassador Beth, when she went to Liberia in March, she made a statement and said Liberians need to continue to push and advocate for the full implementation of the TRC recommendations, especially the war crimes code. And this is what is happening now. So yes, it's a new day and I'm completely excited.
Okay, it's a new day and you're completely excited. Voice of Commissioner Massa Washington here. Folks, if you're just joining us, we're in conversation with Commissioner Massa Washington. please help us share the show. In a moment here, we'll open the lines so that maybe you can have the opportunity to interact with Commissioner Massa Washington. As you all know, she does not hold back. She does not. We can say, like, bro, she can draw back for no question. But anyway, just before more coming, let me ask you this question. Most recently, it's reported that you were in Europe. It seemed like your work is never ending on the issue of justice and accountability. Uh, do you mind maybe informing the Liberian people as to what was going on in terms of justice and accountability on the other side of the world?
Yes, I was in France about 3 weeks ago now, on invitation from the French government. The French government actually wrote the U.S. government through the State Department and the Justice Office, asking for them to please consult with me and appeal to me to please go to France and help the French government, the French Court of Appeals, through its prosecution office, to serve as one of the expert witnesses on the case that they were adjudicating. But as a matter of fact, they actually won their appeals. So the case was a case of former Ulimo K warlord Kondi Kamara. So Kondi Kamara, since 5 years ago, his case had been going on. He was accused of committing all sort of unimaginable atrocities in Lofa County, mainly in the Foya area. He was with Ulimo K, and he was one of the commanders there in Foya. He was accused of beheading people. In fact, one of the guys in the court, when I went to take part in the process, one of the witnesses who were testifying said Kondi killed his sister. He beheaded his sister. And when Kondi walked through the court, when the guy saw Kondi, he was jumping out of his seat to rush to Kondi. Of course, the court security had to restrain him, and he broke down and cried. It was very painful. So Kondi Kamara had done all sort of unimaginable atrocities against victims in the Foya Lofa County, he and his men. And so he was arrested based upon complaints by other, Liberians victims. Some of them live in Europe. What is happening here, Moses, is that at the end of the war, a lot of us travel outside of Liberia. We came here. But much as people like you and me who really had nothing to do with war, we didn't hurt any people. We came here trying to rebuild our lives that was shattered, during the war. Alleged perpetrators or perpetrators who also did horrible things. Some of them slipped through the crack. They came here too. They came here. They went to Europe. They're in the West African sub-region, and they're also living their lives. They're also, trying to put together the pieces of their lives. And unfortunately for some of them, some of their victims are still around and can recognize them. And so Kondi Kamara, some of his victims were able to complain him. And so that's how the French, they pick up his case. So he was convicted in 2002. He was convicted in 2002. I was there. I was there again in 2002. I testified as an expert witness. Now, an expert witness means that I do not know Mr. Kondi. I never saw him before in my life. I never saw him in Foya Lofa County. But the owner asked me to come to give them, because they don't know anything about Liberia, the judges and the jurors, to give them a picture of what happened in Liberia as a professional journalist who covered the war, as a human rights advocate, as a women's rights advocate. So they wanted me to give them his perspective of what it was. What was the war like? What were some of the things? So they asked me questions. I testified for 3 hours non-stop. On the war, what happened in the war, the different factions, how they presented, what was their modus operandi, and all of that. So in 2002, Kondi Kamara was convicted, and he was sentenced to 20 years, but then he was appealing his conviction. So this was the appeal process that I went to again. The French government invited me again. So I went there and I testified again as expert witness. This time they asked me some other questions that they didn't ask me the first time. And I was able to provide them more information and gave them more insight on the war. But at the end of the day, Kondi Kamara, the original verdict against him was withheld. So the appeals court withheld the verdict against him. So he's going to remain in jail for 20 years.
So are you saying, just before more comes in, are you saying that other, and this is interesting, are you saying in other parts of the world, maybe except from Liberia as we speak, and maybe other African countries, are you saying that other countries are holding people who committed war crimes, atrocity, hurt other people, they're holding them accountable, provided if these people can make their cases and provide the evidences to substantiate the cases and the claims against these war laws, regardless of which part of the world they go, whether that's Europe or whatever it is? Is that what you're saying?
Yes. So they're holding them accountable now on the legal doctrine of something called universal jurisdiction.
Oh, wow.
Meaning that the UN passed universal jurisdiction a couple of years ago, meaning that if you committed, they're condemned, they operated in Liberia during the war. And at the end of the war, he saw himself in France. There's another warlord who is being tried, also called, he was tried and convicted. His name is Alio Cusack. He was arrested in Switzerland. So under the universal principle of universal jurisdiction, it means that, it means that people who committed war crimes, crimes against humanity or genocide, if they are in any country, including here in the United States, and they are found out and they can be arrested and they can be tried under the principle of universal jurisdiction, it means that the UN recognized that a crime against any member or any human being, any member of the United Nations, is a crime against the entire United Nations and the entire world. So it means
so let's push this into a bigger question. And Commissioner Washington, I beg you, let me push you on this part of it for the simplest clarity. Are you saying what some of the perpetrators are saying now in Liberia? That the Supreme Court is the arbiter, the final arbiter, and the Supreme Court, all that in there, that not true. That war crimes and other things that people committed to Liberians in Liberia, and they can be held accountable for it from a universal standpoint. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, because that has been introduced and it's been happening now. You see, what people need to understand is that while it is true that every country is a sovereign country, they have their own laws. We have our constitution, which is our own sovereign organic law. We have our court system, we have our judicial system, and our laws can apply. But notwithstanding, we are members. We are Liberia is a member of the Committee of Nations. We are a member of the United Nations. So any law of the United Nations is also binding on Liberia. So if the United Nations comes out with universal jurisdiction, it means that it's also binding on us and any other member country or member. So this is what is happening. So all those people who talking about, only our constitution, we are a sovereign nation, blah, blah, blah. I will tell you straight, if they step out of Africa, because some parts of Africa, maybe if they went somewhere like South Africa or so, because of the sophistication of their society and the law, they may arrest them. So maybe it's just maybe around West Africa where people might not even be bothered. But if they step out of immediate Africa, and go to Europe or anywhere, and people know about it, and victims recognize them, and victims complain, there's an email address, there's a hotline number that victims can complain to, and victims complain, and they do a preliminary investigation on them, and they find credible evidence that yes, they can hold them accountable, they will be arrested under the principle of universal jurisdiction. If any of those people leave Liberia and go to the UK, the United Kingdom, Switzerland, anywhere in Europe, come to the United States, go to Canada, whatsoever, except the people don't know that they committed crimes or gross violations of human rights in Liberia or war crimes, except the people don't know. But if they know and they put them under the radar and they start to investigate them, they can prosecute them under the principle of universal jurisdiction. Because all of us, even though we are individual or human beings and we belong to individual countries, but our countries are bona fide members of the United Nations.
Right.
We rectify all of the treaties. We sign the treaties. So any law of the United Nations is automatically binding on us. So this is what is happening with all the different people now. And there are other cases that are coming up. There are other cases that are coming up with other people as well. There's a case that's going to be coming up for United States, very soon. There's a case that's going to be coming up for Switzerland also very soon. A lady who is also being investigated for for atrocities. Her case is going to be coming up. There's a case that's going to be coming up in the United States very soon. From different factions. This other person in Switzerland is an MPFL. This other person in the United States is an AFL. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, thank you. Let's welcome Sekou. Sekou, welcome. I know I've been bugging you. I know you were getting some rest, but I've been hitting you up here and there. Welcome to the show.
It's okay.
But before you ask any question, what say you, first of all, before you ask any question, we'll go to Monk.
Yeah, first of all, I want to say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and to also welcome Commissioner Massa Washington back to SKTV. I've been actually following, I've been listening.
Okay.
And because I've been receiving a lot of calls and, text messages. Why are you not on the show? Why are you not on the show? People are concerned, whether, I'm okay. Yes, I'm okay. I was just, I'm still fasting. The 30-day that is obligatory is over, but some of us, we can stay fast 6 more days after the fast month. So that is also a blessing. So I'm still going through that process. That's why I'm now 100% like I was, before the Ramadan. But yeah, it's good to be here. And I must commend Commissioner Washington. I listen to a lot.
Okay.
So I've been thinking about asking a question about some of the accused or convicted actors that she just mentioned. She mentioned Kundi Kamara. He mentioned Ali Koshia, Kundi Kamara in France, Ali Koshia in Switzerland, and he just mentioned 2 other people. But before then, the 2 names he just called from NPFL and AFL. Before then, whether it's Ali Koshia, whether it's Kundi Kamara, whether it's Jongo Java in Philadelphia, all of those cases are people that are from the Ulimo K faction. So there was a concern in the Madingo community saying that in as much as all these people they have participated in the war, why is it that only Madingo people being arrested and prosecuted? Because this guy is a journalist called Fasukwe, who worked with Hassan Belete and other people. Fasukwe is from the Loma tribe. But then before they get recruited to work with that human rights organization that is been arresting and prosecuting people, he is known to be an anti-Madingo person. When we used to be on the listserv, they were the one that used to be attacking, insulting, and talking about what happened in the past. Loma versus Madingo, all those people. So he happened to be one of those people. But then the irony now was, but I know Hassan Belete is Madingo. So it's hard now to make the case of why is it that people who've been arrested are all from the Unimoke faction, then all Madingo, not other people. So that kind of a little bit made it difficult for some Madingo people to make that something. And because of that, Hassan Belete is one of the most hated person in the Madingo setting, especially Madingo. Some people want to see him dead because they feel like Hassan Belete is being the one in the vanguard of witch hunting Madingo people. because not only Mandingo people fought the war, they believe that the selective arrest and selective prosecution has been a target. So I'm trying to go into this thing before I ask you the question so that people can know exactly where I'm coming from. Being one of the leaders in the community, a lot of people been talking to us. They want us to do this, they want us to do that, advocate for this, advocate for that. But I personally don't like to just get involved with justice system or human rights issue, especially where you have victims, being transported. So to the extent where even people who pay some of the so-called victims get paid a transportation to go and testify in some of those cases, we are aware. And in fact, some of the victims, some of the so-called victims were returned based on their testimony. Their testimony could not be admissible in the court because there were no factual to some of it. So with all this, confusion and this and that, can you explain to me, if you have knowledge on this, why is it that all the initial arrest and prosecution were all from the Ulimo Cave side of it?
Okay, so let me first make a full disclosure that I do not work for Hassan. Hassan, while it is true that Hassan's organization is a partner, we're all human rights people and stuff. I do not work for Hassan's organization. I've never even been to his office, but I know Hassan from years back as a fellow journalist. I knew Hassan long before when he used to work with, I think, Footprints newspaper or the Heritage Footprints. Yeah, so I knew Hassan way back. We were all journalists. So, two, what I'm thinking is, again, your concerns, you have legitimate concerns, but I think, again, I stand to be corrected, but I think people are sometimes, I think people are misunderstanding what is happening. You see, the Liberian Civil War is let me just say, a catch-22 situation for all of us because it's a small society. We are all interrelated. We are all interrelated. Just yesterday, I had called one of my friends. I'm trying to track down one of my closest childhood friend, classmate. We graduated high school together. We graduated college together. We're very close. Her name is Kwayama Kaba. We used to be very, very close. Since after the war, she went to France, I think, to get married. And then I think they said she was in Senegal. I don't know, but I lost contact with her. We're very close. I'm La Madingo. During the war, they used to live at PHP in the back of the J compound, the Kaba people that were there. Their father was a prosperous Madingo man, very hardworking. He used to do trucking and stuff. And when the war started, me as a journalist was concerned about them because I knew the whole family. The mother used to love me. Sekou kept posting all the different food about Ramadan and stuff, and I thought about Mrs. Kaba. When I used to want to eat grumpy soup that the horse I used to go to, they treated me as their own daughter. In fact, when the war started reaching closer, when they were leaving to go to Guinea, trying to get away for their safety because it was dangerous when they started killing Mandingo people. The father sent for me and told me to tell my father that they are taking me with them to Guinea. That's how close we were. So I'm making this point, Sekou, to say that we are all interrelated. We are more related than we think. We are more related than we think. But I think what is happening here with the concerns that Mandingo people think that the Mandingo tribe is targeted, I want to slightly disagree. Is because maybe, like we said, it is not that people who, quote unquote, are victims that are launching this complaint. They launch this complaint and then people take it up and they start to investigate it and whatsoever. So I think we have some coincidences happening here. Sometimes coincidences are not fact. It's just like coincidences happen. Okay. For example, someone might be annoyed with someone and say, that thing what you did to me, you will see. When I finish with you will see. And the person just making beef more than do nothing. But then the next day they get up and that person had died. But then the person who say you will see was in that neighborhood visiting somebody else right next door. And the person died and they say the autopsy showed that the person died from poison. Guess what? Everybody will say, oh, but just last night he was telling the guy, said the guy was sick, and then we saw him in the neighborhood. So sometimes coincidences can look very real, but they may not be the same. Now, as far as I'm concerned, there are 3 members of the Ulimo K who are of the Mandingo tribes who were persecuted: Jongo Jaba, Kondi, and also Ali Okyoshat. But don't forget, Tom Woyu was persecuted. In fact, Tom Woyu was the first big case in this place. Tom Woyu is a Bassa man, and he was a big week of the NPFL. Martina Johnson has been arrested. Martina Johnson is Gola from Bomi County. That Ellen niece, that Ellen Johnson said brother or daughter. She's been arrested. She has been in jail for some time. Her case is coming up now. She's the one I talk about. I say somebody from the NPFL would be her case. So her case is coming up. She's not Mandingo. Then you have, I will not call his name, but he's of the Crown tribe. His case is going to come up in Philadelphia very soon. He's not Mandingo. So I think what happened yesterday is that it so happened that maybe the people, identify those Mandingo guys first, and that's how the case came up first. But I don't think, I will tell you straight, I'm into justice. I'm behind all of this. I want people persecuted. I know me. I will never, ever target any Liberian or any group of Liberian. I'm not going to do it. I have a foster brother who is Mandingo. My parents raised Sekou. When he came to us, he was only 9 years old. He remained with us today. During the war, we had to change his name to Ben Washington so that the NPFL rebels couldn't kill the people son with us. He's a Mandingo boy. He's my brother. So I don't think it's selective. Maybe I'm just speaking for me. I'm not in the heart of the other people, so I can't put my name on the chopping board for them. But what I'm saying is what I do is simply because we want accountability and justice. Now, did Kondi do what people accuse him of? Yes, he did. Because in the final analysis, 3 weeks ago, when he was appealing his case, he found it true in the issue of child soldier. He said, oh, yes, I did these things, but I was a child soldier. But then to myself, I said, wow, your case been going on for 5 years. If you were a child soldier, that is your biggest, bargaining chip. Why you didn't use it ever since? From day one, they arrested him. Kondi could have said, I was a child soldier. This was my age. And automatically, because even universal jurisdiction, even the United Nations, they recognize the rights of the child. And we know that Liberia had a lot of child soldiers. So they would have made some, allowances for him and process him differently. But for 5 years, he didn't raise that issue of child soldier. But then he came to his appeal now 3 weeks ago and said he was a child soldier. But you see, the damage was already done. So they determined that he was not a child soldier. So whether he is indeed a child soldier or not is another issue. But I don't think, Sekou, I don't think people are intentionally. I mean, if I'm in the process and I'm hearing people talking about they're going to target Mandingo people, go after Mandingo people or crime people or whatsoever, I would blow the alarm. I would take issue with them. And I'm not going to be a part of that. Because this is why Liberia was destroyed. Liberia was destroyed because people thought they could get rid of all the Mandingo people. They could get rid of all the crime people. They could get rid of all the Kio and Mano people. This is what the division is so deep today. Tribal politics, tribal war is the worst. And we should get away from it. So yes, you have 3.
Let me. I like the, the clarification, and also like the fact that you are very clear as to your connection or your affiliation with I don't know, they call it Siva Maxima. That's the name of the
Civita Maxima, yeah.
Maxima. So I like that, but it also like the fact that you may not be knowledgeable about their models operandi, the MO, how they work, and what is in it for them financially, and the reason why they are doing what they are doing, and the money that is in it for them, as opposed to being for a quest for justice in Liberia. However, I just wanted to ask you if you have any knowledge when it comes to the current establishment of War and Economic Crimes Court. Will the court have jurisdiction over other cases being prosecuted around the world, to include the one that already been adjudicated and being sentenced, where the court have any jurisdiction, where the court have power to decide the fate of those people that have been already convicted, and where the court have any jurisdiction over whether or not they can be acquitted or retried.
Okay, Sekou, you're asking me to
If you
provide.
have, that's why I say if you have knowledge.
No,
if you do not have it, that's fine.
But let me just say, you're asking me to provide you answer to something that hasn't happened yet. It has not even started yet. Right now, they just only, endorse, the Senate just endorsed it. It's a whole process. They have not even set it up. So I think your question would be very good when the process start. That is when they start to write out the description of the court, like the powers of the court and its instruction and description, what it would be doing specifically. Then that question would be very important. And I would be one of those who will ask that question for you if you don't have the opportunity. But you got your show, you can say ask that question on your show. They will hear it because people listen to you. So I think when the course starts, that would be one of the questions. It would be good to ask them, okay, so you guys are going to be operating in Liberia. Will you also have jurisdiction over other people who are outside of Liberia, who have been arrested and who have been persecuted? And then also, what would be the relationship between those processes and the one happening in Liberia?
Yeah.
But so that's very exceptional question, but I think it's ahead of our time. Your question, you're a smart guy, so you're always thinking ahead. But that would be a good question to ask at the appropriate time. But for right now, I can't say anything because nothing has even started yet.
Okay. So based on some of the documentation that we have in our possession, where we relate to the court jurisdiction and the processes, our understanding is that the court will have people, let's say the United States will appoint, we have the ability to appoint, the power to appoint some of the judges, the United Nations, the EU, the ECOWAS, and the European Union in Liberia. So based on that, this they say it will meet international standard. What do you say to Liberians who believe that their person or their people being targeted, the likes of Prince Johnson, for example, okay, he always make it look like the whole thing is all about him. What assurance can you, based on your knowledge, can give to Liberians who are concerned maybe they're going to target us? And simply because Prince Johnson is being named as one of the notorious actors by the TRC, does that mean Prince Johnson is guilty? Or what guarantee that you're going to give them that they still have the opportunity to walk free if they can exonerate themselves?
Okay, so I think the example you're giving about the description of the court, I think is the draft statute to establish the extraordinary court. I think you saw it in the TRC or final report because the TRC drafted. What you're talking about is coming from the TRC. We drafted. We didn't only recommend, but we try to give people a working document, something to work. It's not set in stone, but we're trying to give them something to work with that they can look at and develop and make it stronger. And the reason we recommended that is that based upon the experience of our process, when we introduced the diaspora process, especially in the United States of America, where we have statement takers here in America collecting people's statements, everywhere we went, all the different places that we had the TRC project, Liberians there said they were not going to give their statement to Liberians. This is how we had to bring, other non-Liberians who were living here. Some of them were white people, American people. Some of them were Black, but they were like maybe Jamaicans or they were British people and stuff. So they were the ones who were collecting the statement here. They were the ones who Once you identify the person or the person call and say, I want to give a statement, and they send the address and stuff, they say, but I don't want any Liberians because we are so distrustful of each other. And sometimes you want to understand why, because like Sekou is saying, people persecuted people, people gaslight people, people hate people simply on the basis of their ethnicity. The Liberian Civil War degenerated into an ethnic conflict. We saw it. When Umusida came about what his name was, or Umusida brother Ego, I'm talking to the boy for a long time, but he came to the TRC to testify. He was so afraid to testify in Liberia. When we came to Minnesota, where we had the TRC hearings, he flew there. He came and testified there. And when he was testifying, I was completely devastated. I had to get up and go to Commissioner Umusila and hug her and cry with her. I had no idea that her family had suffered like that. Dana Baba Sila, the older brother, after he, I just forgot his name. But anyway, when that boy came to testify how his family suffered.
Is it Hassan Sila?
No, Dana Hassan, the oldest brother. He was trying to run for, he was in politics, he was trying to run for legislator before, but then he withdrew.
Okay.
Amen. I know him very well. His name just
Ali. That's Ali Sila.
Ali Sila. So when Ali Sila came, because one of the major warlords, who was a senator in Liberia at the time the TRC were operating, he went to the compound, killed the pa, killed the other brother because the brother was in the AFL. Looted the compound because they were Mandingo people. And they failed to take into account that Mr. Sila, that old man, he worked so hard. He was hard-working old man.
The guy who killed Elijah Solomon Sila is called Adolphus Dolo.
Yes, I didn't want to call his name.
Okay, yeah, so because I know it was Adolphus Dolo.
So here you have a commissioner, a Mandingo girl, Umusila, one of the most quiet, calm person I ever knew. She's sitting on the TRC doing her work, and she's listening to other people and stuff. Nobody knows her story. Her father and brother were killed in cold blood by a senator who came to the TRC and were making big move. And she's sitting there. There was a picture that Sando Mo took, because Sando Mo knew the story. You all know the famous Liberian photographer Sando Mo. He knew the story. When Adolphus Dolo was testifying, Sando Mo focused on Umusila, and he took a picture. And that picture tells 1,000 words. She was just sitting quietly like this, just looking at Dodo like this. You could see the look on her face. She was not frowning. She was not insulting him, but it was just like this. And when the Ali Sila came to Minnesota to testify on the TRC, I'm telling you, we were working with his sister on the TRC. His sister and myself were very close. I had no idea that these people suffer like this only because they were Mandingos. Only because they were Mandingos. Okay? So, Sekou, come back to your point to say, because people targeted people for the tribe, the family name, because they were prosperous, all the kind of people targeted Mandingo people too, because they were prosperous people. Everybody know that they are hardworking people, they are merchants, they are business people. They targeted them, they stole their properties, and all the kind of stuff. We know that. So because of that, Liberians in the TRC process, especially in the diaspora, were distrustful of Liberians. They didn't want Liberians to take their statement because they thought that people would tamper with the document and all the kind of stuff. So this is how we had to engage the advocates for human rights, so engage some, U.S. lawyers and start training them, and they were the ones who went to the homes of Liberians to take Liberian statement. So we knew that they didn't know them, they're not part of Liberia, they're not part of any tribe, so they will have no vested interest to lie on the people's statement form or to say, put something there that they did not say. They don't know anything. Okay, so the statute that the TRC drafted as part of the recommendations to establish a court, the statute is saying that, for example, if we're going to have 5 judges, 3 of the 5 judges should be international judges, and maybe 2, it can be 1 Liberian judge and maybe 1 ECOWAS judge. The reason is because we want to be sensitive to we want to be respectful of the sensitivity of the Liberian people. They don't trust people because all kind of things happen. Up until now, there are some people who among us, we think they're so clean, we love them. We don't know what all people did. Some people, they were not standing out there openly with gun killing people, but they were in the corner pointing people out. Some of them pointing people out. So we want to make sure that the process will be as fair as possible. This is why we recommended that we have more international judges, than local judges. So
All
that
right.
way people
Let
trust
let me
the
ask
process.
you, let me ask you my last question, and then I will go back to Steve. That is, let me first, before I ask that question, I want to say thank you for at least attempting to answer my questions. And the one you couldn't answer, you were very clear with that. So to those people who are saying, oh, why SECU is concerned, and this is not just me, I'm speaking for millions of people, or if not thousands of people, who have reached out to me, being one of those leaders in my community. People are concerned. I know exactly conversation being held in those community around the corner, in families, on the kitchen table, about how they feel, how they see this whole process. So when we have the opportunity to talk to other people, especially like Commissioner Martha Washington, who, in fact, before you clarify your role you play, how you serve as witness in France, I didn't know, the extent to which you participated. What we knew was Master Washington, that is one of those people then who went to testify against Kundi. I'm just telling you. So this is why when we come to these public domains, it's better to ask the right questions so that people can clarify, get the opportunity to clarify and to tell the people exactly what they know and who they are. So I was happy when I was watching you explaining your participation, what happened, what did not happen. So my last question to you is that, can this war and economic crimes court be done outside of the recommendation of TRC? Because those who are considered as some of the perpetrators are saying they don't respect for the TRC report. They are asking the United Nations, the United States, to start a new process. Can this war and economic crimes code be established without using the TRC recommendation report as the coordinate document for this process?
No, I don't think so, Sekou. One of the basic and main reasons is that this whole war and economic crimes court has its origin from the TRC. It's a TRC recommendation. And the TRC made those recommendations based upon its work, intent, investigation, fact-checking, deliberations, and all of that. So no, it's not going to happen outside of the TRC. But what happened is it's like people are saying that we want to do so and so thing, but let's not use the Liberian Constitution. It's impossible. It's impossible. I always tell people, our Constitution, and like every Constitution, not only us, any document that is created by man is not a perfect document. You know that. We're not perfect people. And I will be the first to say, I think the TRC did a good job. I think we tried based upon many, many factors. But then also, when I review the process and stuff, sometimes I'm like, oh, you know what? I think we could have done that better. I think we could have done this better. Experience always makes us better. This is why they talk about best practice. And in countries and societies that are more advanced than ours, this is why they emphasize training, experience. When you go to apply for a job in America, they look at your degree, but they look at experience. Because it is only experience and with time that you get better at it. You see the people who, like, for example, if you've never been, say, a program director before, and they hire you as a program director, and you work as a program director for 5 years. If you go to another place as a program director, you will do even better. That is, if you don't want to play and want to be off, you'll do even better than what you did over there, because now you have the experience. Now you know the different strategies. Now you know what to do. Now you can think outside it because you have the experience. So same thing I'm saying. If we went back to do the TRC process again, some things will change for the better. But right now, we have the best document that we could. Everybody say, you know what? Let me just say, as not perfect as our document was. There are two things that happened on the TRC that I'm proud of, and I can go to bed in peace. I can sleep well. Two things. One, we established the truth. We investigated and we said, this is what happened. Okay, and we said, these are the people. If you notice, all the warring faction hate us. They hate Massa Washington. Y'all know they can be every warring faction across the board. They insult me all over the place. The only person who never insulted me one day, who never called my name in a defaming way one day, was GV, Alhaji Nkrumah. He was the only person. And I know why. Because Nkrumah was a gentleman who got caught up in the time. We did our work. We put her name in a report. I remember the first time I saw Alhaji Nkrumah after we put his name in a report, I met him at the U.S. Embassy function. The ambassador at the time, Linda Greenfield, had invited me. They had a visitor, the visiting Undersecretary of State for Africa Affairs, Janjay Kaiser. She was visiting Liberia and invited a couple of us and invited me. They also invited G.V. Nkrumah. And I was standing on the balcony towards the seaside, the embassy compound, the ambassador resident, talking to the British Chargé d'Affaires, Gillian Diary, who was my friend. And then Nkrumah came in looking immaculate with that nice Mandingo gown, basam and stuff. When he walked, he spoke to them and he came straight to me. Don't forget, he was my professor at LU Mass Comm department. He taught me. And he was one of the best journalists Liberia ever produced. And he walked straight to me and he hugged me and I hugged him. And he said, I'm very proud of you. You always been smart. You always been serious. He said, and you are an honest person. That's what he said. He said, but you put my name in a report. He said, so Massa, what you want the people to do? They must lock me up, put me to jail. But you know, he was a guy, he always made joke. He said, they must lock me or carry me to jail or whatsoever. Then he teased me. He said, they must put your own professor in jail. But guess what? The point I'm trying to make is he made light of it. So he may not have been happy that his name was in the TRS report. Alhaji Nkrumah was a proud man. Maybe had Alhaji Nkrumah not be involved in the war at that level, he would have probably been the first Mandingo president of Liberia. That's how educated and respectful he was. But things happen. Things happen. I'm not praising him. I'm just saying Alhaji Nkrumah was the only warlord we put his name in the TRC report who never called press conference to cost me, to cost TRC commissioner, who never threatened me. I never felt unsafe with Alhaji Nkrumah. Even after we put his name in the report, I used to see him places. Last time before he got seriously sick and died, I saw him walking on Getty Street, right near Water and Sewer. He stopped to talk to some people. I was on the other side at the Central Printing. When I saw him across the street, and I went to speak to him. And we chatted for a while and we moved on. You know what? He accepted. He knew who I was as a student. And he accepted me. He accepted that we did our job. He didn't say, you're lying on me. Nkrumah never said it. The rest of the warlord, they cost a whole day. They get ready, they make statement, they lie on you, they cost you this, you that. You know, Prince Johnson will go to his church and preach on me and other commissioners. So the point I'm trying to make here is that I'm proud of two things. The TRC established the truth as to what happened in Liberia. And not a single person who is named in the report had come out to say, oh, the TRC lie on us. The only thing they can say, oh, the TRC people won't bring war back. Or why they put my name there, they put other people's name there. So as long as we establish the truth, I can sleep with that. Other things that people think we didn't do very well, I don't think they are so, overly important as establishing the truth. Because it was important to establish the truth for our history so that we understand. And I believe that at the end of the day, when the War Crimes Code comes to and so whatsoever, at the end of the day, once the whole process is over with, the chip will fall where they may. If I see Prince Johnson today, I will speak to him and tell him, say, Mr. Senator, thank you for signing the War Crimes Code document, because you know what? I don't have any personal beef with him. I did my job. It was a general job. I got no personal beef with anybody.
Fair enough.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much, Commissioner Massa Washington. Folks, if you're following us here, this is SK TV. We're still in conversation here with Commissioner Massa Washington. Monk, what say you? Any question from you? Monk, are you there?
Monk wants my head on the platter, man.
Monk, are you there? Okay. Well,
Monk, what your question?
So Steve,
Cyrus.
Before Mo asks the question, somebody asked a question. I don't know whether you want to ask that to the commission. I'm saying they don't have time. Somebody's asking whether the facilitators, what role and would they be also included in the process? Those who facilitated the war, not just the question I wanted to, I think almost similar to that, because I wanted to ask you about what method did you guys use to actually characterize certain people as major or notorious actors, but then somebody's asking whether the facilitators will also be prosecuted.
You mean those who facilitated the war, or those who facilitated crime?
We should ask you, please ask Ms. Washington about those who facilitated. Those facilitators, yeah, that's what the person is saying. But my question is that how did you guys arrive at description of people who are considered major actors or notorious warlords?
Okay, so I think I stated it earlier, but I will state it again. First, because we are not a court, and some of us are not lawyers, we're not judges, we establish one of something called preponderance of evidence. It's like more likely than not, based upon our processes, based upon what was coming to us, based upon the evidence that we collected, most likely than not, that person did what they said they did, based upon what happened. And how did you determine whether a person was a most notorious perpetrator or not? I don't want to call name, but there's some people in the report where you saw stars to their name, and some of them, they are like notoriously famous. No, when people are famous, they're good. They're infamous. They are notoriously infamous. Those people were people who committed crimes. The crimes that they committed were so flagrant, it beats all rational thinking of civilized people. Like, for example, people openly shooting people, killing people in the street. We have some pictures where people, like, for example, one of the pictures, it got Prince Johnson standing over an aid worker. It's a picture with a pickup. A white aid worker is standing there. He's handcuffed to another Liberian aid worker who's lying on the ground. And Prince Johnson is standing over this guy with his gun. I mean, that tells a story. Even if it tells a story. Then you have a video that's been circulating of the abuse of Walter Allison, wife of former Defense Minister Grady Addison. Now, people can argue that her husband was what with Samuel do, he did this, he did it. But what's about her? So are we going to now prosecute people based upon their connections? So, if you say Grady Allison did stuff, what did Walter Allison do? She was a Liberian woman. She was very helpful in her community. She was the city mayor of Caldwell. She did a lot of good. She has scholarship for children. She did a lot of good. We saw the video of the abuse that she suffered at the hand of Prince Johnson. He slapped this poor woman so hard, her glasses fell from her face before he ordered his girl to go and kill her. You understand? So, and we have cases where family members wrote the TRC, they came and testified as to what happened there. For example, the case of Marcado. When Prince Johnson came to the TRC, we asked him what happened to Marcado. Marcado was not fighting for any fighter. He was not with the AFL. He was not fighting for any group. He worked at Hotel Africa. Prince Johnson killed him. When we asked him, but why did you kill Marcado? And he gave some excuse, but he admitted that he killed the guy. So these were, the evidence was just so overwhelming. So this is how he ended up being, most notorious and stuff. So the perpetuation of the crime repeatedly over and over, the fragrant way that people's life were taken, that gross violations of their human rights took place. Those were some of the ways we determine whether this person was notorious or not.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Mark, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yes. Any question? Any concern?
Yeah, I think my final question on the whole thing of the TRC, because the standard narrative is the TRC, speaking of statute of limitation, will be looking at anywhere between 1989 and 2003. That's the standard cliche now all over the place in the media and everywhere. But if you go to the documents, you will notice that TRC was also given a mandate to go as far as 1979 to establish or premise all the basic for future investigation as well. I don't know if the Miss Washington here is, I mean, if you got something to talk about that, I mean, like to balance the two between the 1979 being given a mandate to also go as far back as 1989 compared to the 1979 to 1989. That's a 10 years period. So it's not only from 1989, but 1979 as well. You guys were given the mandate to do an investigation too.
So what is the question? Sorry, I didn't get the question.
My question is, for the average listener, they know that in terms of the statute of limitation for the TRC or war crimes, war and economic crimes, could over year 1989 to 2003. But you guys were given a mandate to go back as far as 1979 in the document. I don't know if you're aware of that. I'm just asking.
It's not an issue of statute of limitation. It was an issue of the time frame that we were asked to look into. Okay. It said in the TRC Act says, yes, the TRC can start investigating for so and so time. However, if the commission can go back as far as 1979 if it deemed fit. And the reason I mentioned 1979 is, don't forget, we had a turbulent period of 1979. We had the West Riot, where, you know, it was a turbulent period for Liberia. I mean, it was a short period, but it ruffled, you know, our system, our civil system, our government system. So it told us that we could go as far back as that time.
Okay.
And we did, even though it was not the focus mandate period, but it said we could. Mm-hmm. And so we decided, we looked into the issue of the West Riot. We decided, we even mentioned it in the TRC report. So it was an issue of time frame, not statute of limitation.
All right. And did you guys make recommendation after going back as far as 1979, or you guys only reviewed the period but never made any determination?
When you look at our recommendations, we have more than 200 recommendations, and some of the recommendations address basically some of the things that happened. And when we review 1979, we found that some of the things that happened, some of it might have occasion also some of the things that happened, you know, in the war, and some of the things that serve as precursor of the war. So when we made some recommendations, we were also considering or taking into consideration some of the things that happened in 1979 and how, you know, if we as a society put certain things in place, that we may not have that kind of situation anymore.
All right. Sounds fair enough.
Thank you. Sekou, I know you came on a little later. I don't know if you have a follow-up question so that maybe we can take one or two calls before.
Sekou looking hungry.
Sekou, go ahead.
Yeah, I look what?
You're looking hungry.
No, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good, Steve. For now, I will, you know, let me just clarify certain things. Some people, our followers and fans on this platform, some of them they don't still understand how we run our show in this place here. I just want to clarify to some of them. Steve can ask all the questions he wants. I can ask all the questions I want. Monk can ask all the questions he wants. But I want you to know that Monk is not typical person asking too much question. Monk is not interested in asking a lot of questions.
I listen more than questions.
His perspective, his understanding, and recommendation on issues. So that's why we don't normally go to Monk for most of the time for questioning, because he would say, I don't have question. I wouldn't have a statement or maybe one question. That's it. So some of you who are really eager to hear from Monk is not based on questioning. He is here to give his analysis on issues and recommendation. When he wants to ask questions, he asks a question, but we don't really like to bother him too much to ask questions because that's not his area. He doesn't like to ask questions a lot. If he deem it necessary, he sees the need to ask questions, he will.
That's it. When there's a need, when there's a need to ask, I'm going to ask. Why should I be asking questions just for the sake of asking questions?
Exactly. It's a need for the man to ask questions. The man will ask questions. We telling him more ask questions? No. But some of you want to come here and tell us how to run our show. But anyway, that's democracy. Yes, you're right. But
that's why I keep telling you, most of our people, they
we decide how to run our show.
Responding only rather than understanding. I keep saying the show where they just like listening and just understand what's going on. I mean, come on.
More. I know we understand exactly how we work here, but some of them we just need to educate them, tell them exactly how things look like. Mon doesn't even hear from what Mon ask question. He can choose to ask question at any time. He can even interrupt the guest and say, "Hey, okay, I have a follow on this." He can interrupt me. He can interrupt Steve likewise. So we work together. So we shouldn't have problem with.
So I got a question before we can take maybe a few calls here, Commissioner Washington. And this question is about you personally. Do you feel safe and secure amidst all of the things that you're involved with, such as going to serve as expert witness, whether testifying, whether providing information, whether being part of, unearthing the truth? All of that. Do you feel safe? How do you feel engaging in this dangerous, risky territory that you're in?
It's a good question, but it's also a mouthful question. So, it's a huge question because sometimes within the privacy of my little space, behind the scenes, when I'm not in the public domain, I sit and think about it, and I ask myself, when I go to Liberia, would I be found somewhere dead one day? Will I be found somewhere raped one day? So and so. But then when you think about the bigger picture, you say you don't want anything to happen to you because you don't think you deserve it. But then after a while, you don't want to be fixated in the issue of, or you feel safe, you don't feel safe, because then it forces you to not want to do anything. And you will see, Moses, every country has, in the history of every country, it's always a handful of people who want to do the right things, who want to see change. So whether it's just the few handful of student leaders, whether it's a talk show host like your show and people like you, whether it's people like me, whether it's journalists, whether it's doctor, it's never the majority of people that change anything. Let's understand that. It's never the majority of people that change anything. The majority of people are always scared. They're always scared and they are afraid to venture. They don't take risk. This is why the majority of people are easily manipulated, because they are afraid to take risk. It is always only the handful of people. The people who built this great United States, the founding founders, Benjamin Franklin and Sir Patrick Henry and all these different people, when they staged the Boston Tea Party and whatsoever, at the end of the day, when they went to that Constitution or assembly meeting in downtown Philadelphia, there were less than 200. Less than 200 that the people who formed this country, this great country today. So when you think about it, yes, you think about your safety, you get scared sometimes, especially, I would say straight, when major warlords, they call your name, in the most vicious way and stuff. You get scared because these are people during the heydays of the war, they commanded, they had the authority and the power between life and death. They could determine whether you live or you die. So yes, momentarily, but then when you look at the bigger picture, you say, you know what, I want to do this. And for me, I will tell you straight, my mantra is, if anybody wants to hurt me, because you see, if people want to hurt you and they are insistent they want to do it, they will find a way. I don't care what you do. Even if you have security guard, you can be in a cage with all the security. If someone is determined that they want to hurt you, they can find a way. So what I do in my life, what gives me comfort is I always try to do the right things. Nobody, and I challenge anybody who will come and say Massa Washington targeted me. When she was a journalist, when she was with women advocacy, when she was on the TRS, she targeted me because she hate me because of my tribe or my name or whatsoever. I challenge that person, will have that discussion. So I just always want to do the right things. So if you think that in the discharge of my duty that I'm trying to do rightly and fairly, if you think I deserve to be hurt, if you think I deserve to be killed, I'm not saying please go ahead and do it, but hey, I leave you to your God. Because you see, today, the Senate, the legislature, and the Senate have finally signed this war crimes code. Most as you know, do you think if it were left to the majority of the people, the 4 million people, do you think we're going to be happy? No, it was a persistent, small group of people like you, people like me, people like other advocates. When you really sit down and do a list of the people who've been consistently, it's been 15 years now. June 3rd will make it 15 years since the TRC report came out, since we called for the recommendations. When you list down the people who've been really pushing for this thing and whatsoever, I don't think we even good 100. Yeah, but persistency has paid off. So, hey, do I get scared sometimes? I think about it, but I don't think I get scared. I do that because the thing about it is that, certain thing out of your hands. How are you going to worry yourself and start, losing sleep if you think, we were in the war, we survived the war. You get to my point? So no, I don't really get scared. I think about it. Sometimes I ask myself, even though we're getting older, but sometimes I think I'm still young. So I ask myself, would I really be alive in the next 10 years to see this war crimes code really take off, in fruition and really see the result of it? Would I be able to see the next generation not having to deal with all this thing, of people have to be hiding? Look, let me tell you something. Go back to the TRC hearings in Minnesota. And now, I'm not trying to be a tribalist. I'm not trying to impress the Mandingo people whatsoever. But I got close relationship with, people from the Mandingo tribe. Go to the TRC recommendations. Hearings, and listen to Ali Sida testimony. If you don't cry, listen to Ali Sida, a young, educated, handsome man. Let him tell you how they chase them all over the place like dogs. The honest thing, because they were Mandingos. We were sitting there listening to this thing, and I had no idea. Almost see that would do this. And this girl is a commissioner on the TRC. Every day she wake up in the morning, she say her prayer, she join us quietly. One of the most peaceful person I know. She does her work. She got along with all commissioners and everything. She get up in the morning, she does her work and whatsoever. We are the hard-headed people, so we're pushing the issue or whatsoever. And this was her story. When he explained how trying to get a family from safety because they live on, they were hiding from place to place. All the different places they went in Monrovia, people couldn't hide and they were scared because they were, people would say no except you before the people come to chaos. They had to go by way of Cape Mount trying to get to Boldwater side. And guess what? Some of them they got missing from each other. They couldn't find each other. And he is thinking that all his siblings are dead because he's the older brother. He's trying to take them to safety. Look, if you have any doubt about why it was important to have this TRC process, please go back and listen to some of the testimony. Listen to some of the testimony, then you will understand, no, we have to do this thing and why we want accountability. How is it that other group of Liberians who were born in the country, who family have made immense contribution in the country, who are peaceful people, who are loving people, are chased all over the place like chicken in their own country because of their tribe? Because of their tribe. It happened to the Crown people too. When I went to Buron camp during the statement taking process, because I led that process because I was the chairperson of the TRC diaspora program. So I led a team to the Buron camp and were taking statement. And they told me that Samuel Doe family was on the camp. His sister, his older sister, who was Harrison Penner's wife, her younger sister, the nieces and nephew and stuff, living on the camp like everybody else, very poor. And I said, I want to see Doe family. I want to see them. You please encourage them to be part of the process. The statement takers on the camp Liberian guys, when they made the connection. And I met with them. I went to their home first. Respectfully, I met with them and everything. The way I respected them, everything, they decided to talk to me. Because in the first place, we must understand you cannot spread collective guilt. Okay? This was Samuel Doe family. But what role did they play? Did they kill anybody? Did his sister then kill anybody? Did his nephew or his niece kill anybody? No. They just happened to have been the family of Samuel Doe. And this is what Samuel Doe was. I'm telling you, when those people came, they met with me first because I wasn't taking the statement. The statement took a tick, but I wanted to meet with them. When they met with me, I sat in a room with them and one of my staff. Okay? And the older sister who was married to Harrison Peno, the old man just sat and crossed her leg the whole while. And the younger sister who was Samuel Doe, younger sister, she looked just like him. And she was explaining the story. And the nephew is explaining. And the young girl, when Doe niece, the young girl, I think she was maybe 21, 22. When the girl was explaining her story, I started shedding tears. She said, Commissioner, when the MPFL rebels enter Grand Juda County, the sky was on fire. That was the exact description, and I remember it because it was so epic. It stuck on my head. It was so impactful. She said, when the MPFL rebels entered Grand Juda County, they entered that Sioux morning. The first thing they did was they surrounded all the homes and they put gasoline and they threw fire on all the homes. As they threw fire on all the homes, people running coming outside because they didn't know what hit them. They didn't even know the rebels were there. They're sleeping. As they running coming outside, they were gunning them down. Shooting them, gunning them down, killing them, arresting some of them, cutting their throat. The young girl said, sister, when we were coming outside, we were running. I look at the sky was on fire. It was an allegory for how intensely dangerous the situation was. Only because she was Samuel Doe's niece. What was her own crime? You understand my point? What was her crime? What was Samuel Doe's sister's crime? They had nothing to do with Doe. And when I interviewed them, the sister then they cried. They said, my brother was president. I did not even own a car. When I asked my brother to buy a car for me, he said, no, go and make your own money and buy a car that the Liberian people money are buying a car for you. Samuel Doe's sister did not have a car. But then people coming to kill her because she's Samuel Doe's sister. And these are Liberian women. So as I'm interviewing them and see the trauma and see the stress, my heart broke for them. The only thing I kept saying to myself, oh my God, these are Liberian women. I said to myself, oh my God, these are Liberian women who were treated so horribly, who went through this. I will never forget that moment. As they were the older sister was testifying, I got up and I hugged her. I said, can I hug you? And I hugged her. And I cried with her. And I said, I'm sorry for what you went through. Other people would have said, oh, that's Samuel Doe family. What are you sorry for them for? You know what? I was sorry for them because they had nothing to do with Samuel Doe, what he did. Except you come and tell me that they also kill people, they joined Samuel Doe to kill people then. But they had nothing to do with it. They suffer only because it was Samuel Doe family. And this is Liberia, this is a kind of Liberia that we're trying to get rid of. Moses, if you do something to me, it's you and me. Let's sort it out. I cannot go to your sister, your mom, your daughter, your brother-in-law, your best friend. Cannot do that. Liberians need to stop this collective hatred and guilt. If Sekou do something to me, I cannot go to his wife. I cannot go to his children. No, I must find a way to engage Sekou and say, Sekou, I thought you were my brother, but this is what you did. And we can talk about it. Even if we can't talk about it, I can keep speech from him. I don't care. But I have no right to go and distress his family. And people don't understand. Samuel Doe family suffer. Let me tell you it. They were on a refugee camp. I remember I asked them that day. I said, what you ate today? And the boss said, oh, we don't have anything good. Sometimes we can beat the gari, the farina. We can beat it, we put coconut on it. And that's what we can eat. A former president, Samuel Doe family. Liberians need to learn empathy. We need to love each other. We need to separate all the issue and stuff. Oh, that was Samuel Doe family, that the people who enjoy the country. Samuel Doe's sister did not even own her car. And her brother was president. He did not even own her car. Maybe he bought a car for his girlfriends. The sister did not even own a car. But she was coming to die. People coming to kill her for nothing. When that young girl said to me, Commissioner, when the MPFL fighters enter Grand Juliet County, when we keep running outside with the fire in the hill of the border, I look at the sky was on fire. It was an allegory to say. When she said it to me, that was it for me. When I left from there, I came outside. I gave them water and soda, told them thank you. I came outside, I went to my staff. I said, I want you to treat Samuel Doe family with respect. They have been through too much. When you go to interview them and get a statement, you treat them with respect, with the utmost respect. Because they are Liberian. No, just imagine and say, oh my God, these are Liberian women who went through all this thing. And maybe there's more that they went through, but they couldn't tell me. You understand? We have to stop the hatred of Liberians. Why are we hating each other like this? When is it going to end?
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much. So like Steve said, we should open the line for people who may want to call in and participate. So if you have the show number, we can Mo, while we do that, you have something to say while we open the line for calls?
Oh yes, I gotta remind our audience. Yesterday, traditionally we do our offering on Friday, but yesterday's show was so exciting that we even lost track of the time, and we said we were going to do it today. So if anybody wants to make a contribution towards the SKTV, the regular Cash App and the Zelle number that will be posted on the screen. But once again, we are happy to have Sis Martha Washington on the show, and I'm just listening and learning a lot because I've never heard such a testimony from her. Even though I started the show with a question, but I'm in listening only more at the moment because these stories are so fascinating. So once again, to the listening audience, our tradition, we just extended it to today because of the nature of the show yesterday. But I think you can open the lines now. We'll start monitoring our Cash App.
Yeah. So we are opening the line for you to call in and participate. So the first number that I just pinned, that number is also for Cash App and Zelle. And the second number only had Zelle on it. Cash App with no Zelle. But you can call that number to participate in the conversation. If you have question for Commissioner Martha Washington, you just call us. We will interrupt us. We will pick up your call and you can ask her your question. So, Commissioner Washington, once again, I want to say thank you. And I wasn't around when the show started. I know you've been here now for over 2 hours, I suppose. But it's good to have you on here. And from time to time, we'll be inviting you and other commissioners to come and help us understand some of those things that actually happen and for the establishment of war and economic crimes court in Liberia. Before we get our first caller, do you remember some of the things that you guys listed as some of the main reasons or contributing factors to the war in Liberia? Do you remember some of it? And if so, what are some of those things? And do you think those things are still happening in Liberia?
Yeah, unfortunately, many of those things crept their way back into our society, and we're dealing with them today. One of the factors that we found that contributed to the war and what happened was the unequal access and distribution of the country's resources. Liberia belongs to all of us, but then only a certain group of people have access to the resources and they can live an appreciable life. And our officials, who have had bad government for some time, for years and years, decades, we have had bad governance. our leaders focus mainly, they come to power and they focus on enriching themselves. They are in a hurry to get rich. They are in a hurry to, acquire wealth. And in so doing, they neglect the basic duty of the office, which is to provide for your people where they can work, they have employment, they can work, they can feed their children, where they're able to send their children to school. It's just the basic right to life, liberty, and happiness, in the pursuit of happiness. So our leaders, we have had, leaders who are just have not really, put their best forward. Poverty was another thing, but of course, poverty is closely entwined with mismanagement of the state resources by our leaders. So you had just for a very long time, and the thing about it, even after the coup, people said, oh, it was a country Congo thing. But even after that era, our own people who, quote unquote, supposed to be country people, the key, it was worse. And y'all know it was worse. They were subjugating people. It was even worse. The stealing and all of that. So when you have a small country like Liberia, and with all the resources, and then people don't know how to manage the resources, the leaders don't know how to manage the resources, it trickles down to the ordinary person. And people live in abject poverty. And when people live in such abject poverty, they are susceptible to nonsense, meaning that anybody can manipulate them. I mean, imagine voting time to vote, somebody can't give you $5 and say vote, then they go and vote for that person. It's because of the poverty. The poverty create a mucus in the brain that they can't even take, straight, because it's so bad to keep people in poverty like that. Someone like me, nobody can manipulate me to support them or vote for them. Even if I want to take money from you, only my one in a voting booth, I know what I will put there, but not the ordinary man. And then also ignorance. Ignorance is a major thing with Liberians, in the Liberian community. I mean, people will be dancing, you kill my mom, you kill my pa. That's a deep statement. That is a deep statement. It doesn't only talk about people who physically kill people, relatives, and stuff, but it's talking about the whole system of charlatans who created hardship for other people. Then they come back after stealing. After a handful of people steal all the resources from everybody, make everybody poor. Then they build their mansions and stuff. Then Liberian people that say, oh, you know what? Well, he stole the money, at least he paid his house here. He paid his house at the house for you? That your house? The house for you? Say, oh, you know what? At least he carried the money in America to go buy a house, he built a house here. But how did he get that money to build a house? That should be your concern. Your concern should be how he got this money to build a house. Guess what? He stole money from you, so your child does not have simple medical something. Your child don't have food to eat, and your child will die from malnutrition.
So, Madam Commissioner, thank you so much. Like I said, we're going to be bringing you people all the time here to help our people understand what's going on. We have a lot of calls coming in already. Let me take the first two calls. This person, last 4 digits, 2338. What is your name and where are you calling from?
Flomo, and thanks for having me.
Gustav Flomo, go ahead, sir.
Yes. Now, first of all, I should be listening to some of my Facebook Live and appearance on Facebook. You know that I'm not a supporter of the war crimes court. And if I were to run for president for Liberia, I will go around the country campaigning that I will not support the war crimes court. And if you want war crimes court, do not vote for me. That is the extent to which I do not support the war crimes court. I just want to put that out there, first of all. Now, one of the reasons why I do not support this war crimes court is because I believe that this war crimes court is a money-making scheme by certain individuals. Some of and one of them is Alan White. They want to raise millions and millions of dollars to support this court, and then through raising that money, they can get richer from that money, and the poor Liberian people will not benefit anything from the war crimes court, because this is why. And by saying this, it will also ask my question to Madam Washington. If I say the ordinary Liberian won't benefit, there was this later on, I think OKFM, or I think on SKTV, either on your TV, one of your guys who go around the town asking people. They talked to this woman from 12th Street, behind the Jokwente Market. She said she was a Gio woman from Lima County. I don't Gio man woman. And this woman, her husband, and then 3 male children were killed by one of those soldiers. I think somewhere in 1991 or 92, somewhere there, were killed. But then they spared her life, and then she left the country. I think she found herself in Guinea, but then she came out later. So one of your guys who interviewed her, he said, yes, the guy who killed my husband, my 3 children, he was around 21 years old then. The guy is today, he's in his early 50s, and he lives in the same area. They all live in the same area. When they talk about war crimes, so every morning this guy, and tells this guy, hey, and war crime coming, you and your friend who came my husband and my children, and the guy tells her, look, they're coming for Prince Johnson, and they're not coming for me. So I'm asking this, Madam Washington, if we are bringing this court, I didn't start the show, so I don't know your stance on the court, but if they are bringing this court to serve as a means to bring closure and for people to pay for the crime and for the victims to have justice, how is it justice for this woman who is a Gio woman, possibly a supporter of Prince Johnson? Her husband and her 3 children were killed by a guy who still lives in the area today, and there'll be no way that I'll be prosecuted. And the only way this woman sees justice is for this guy who killed her husband and her 3 children to be grabbed and put in jail, or maybe be prosecuted and then thrown in jail. So how is this justice?
All right, thank you.
Everyone, is it justice for some or all? That's my question, Madam Washington. Like I said, I didn't start the show, so forgive me if I don't know her stance.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you. Let me take the next caller here. I want to take a few before you can. Or you want to do one by one, or you want me to?
Let me do one by one so I don't forget anybody question.
Yeah, the reason why this person been on hold for a long, I don't know how long it's going to take you to.
Yeah, I will make this short. I will make my answer short.
All right,
so so the brother who just asked a question, thank you very much. I think it's an important question. But then I'm in answering your question, I will hypothetically ask this question too. So if you do not support the war crimes court, how do you think this person who committed this gross violation of this lady's human rights by killing her husband, her children, how do you think he will get justice if we don't have the war crimes court to be able to arrest him and prosecute him and possibly lock him up? How do you think it's going to happen, sir?
No, the person left already. I left the person.
If we just don't have the war crimes court and leave all these people, like you said, who are in the community with these people, is that justice? I don't understand. I think his question was a little bit.
So the question now, maybe let me expound a little bit. Don't be a follow-up. He's trying to say this guy now may not be named in the TRC report as one of the perpetrators, or the guy may not have even gone to testify. This guy is unknown, but he was a killer, according to him. Is this guy going to be arrested and prosecuted? The fact that he might not have been recorded or somehow captured in the TRC report or recommendation. Can this guy be prosecuted?
Well, most likely than not, I would say it could happen. It's because, one, now people know. Or maybe, who knows, maybe this guy is even in the TRC report. I don't know the guy's name. Maybe he's even in the TRC report. We don't know. Or maybe he's not. But the thing is, if he's not, with this victim that is still alive, if she can come, because you see, the TRC recommendations did not only stop to listing people for prosecution, it also talked about further investigation. It said the TRC, because we knew that a lot of people didn't come to the TRC for several reasons. Some of them were afraid, some of them didn't trust the process, some of them didn't think anything would happen, they didn't want to waste their time. So what we did was, to be able to accommodate those people, we said there would be further investigation of other people who may be named later who committed atrocities. So someone like this is a very good, test case. If he killed her entire family, he's in the community, he can be identified, and the evidence can be proven and stuff. I don't see no reason why he can be arrested and tried.
Yeah, but he's saying that the TRC or the court is about people who perpetrated the biggest crime, like people who are the major, perpetrators, people who actually committed the bigger crime. like that's why Prince Johnson kind of feel like this is just about me because I was on camera, killing president. Maybe this is only me. The other people who kill other people may not be arrested or prosecuted.
No,
But
Sekou.
that was his concern. So
Yeah.
so that means according to your answer now, if
it's not only people that Prince Johnson who is in the report. They got other people who were to checkpoints. Some of them were commanders and stuff who are in the report. Some of them were lesser known people. They didn't have any ranks and stuff, but it was so horrible. The victim skin, the victim brought proof. So some of them in the report. Let me just show this quickly. You see this book? The TRC report has 6 volumes. It came in 6 volumes. The main report in different specialized volumes. This here is the volume. In this whole book that you see like this is the name of social perpetrators that were named in the TRC. We have a database of the whole book here are social perpetrators from the statement taking, from the hearing. So when people came and said the person did this group did this, we just compiled everything. All the pages you see here, all the names you see, that social alleged perpetrator, all these names. Social alleged perpetrators is let me see. Is 142 pages. 142 pages. All the names that social perpetrators. So we got it here. So it was not only like the major warlords or the BP commanders. Some ordinary soldiers, some ordinary people. And let me tell you also, there were some people who were not fighting war. They were not fighting for ULIMO. They were not fighting for any faction. They were not in AFL. But they also killed people during the war. They did stuff. Some of them are here as well.
Okay. That's fair enough. So let's take the second caller. We're not going to take you. We're not going to keep you here too long because I know you've been helping. So you can have the.
How much more long? Almost like 3 hours. It's 2
No,
hours.
I'm just taking one more call because the person been on hold for a while now. So just take that call. Caller, what is your name and where are you calling from?
This is Mohammed Kita from Staten Island, New York. How are you?
Mohammed Kita from Staten Island, New York. Go ahead. I'm good.
Well, I'm going to be very short. I have 3 short questions, but I'm going to start with what our president said, GNB. He said that he was concerned about the lamented impunity of what has been done in Liberia, meaning looking behavior of reminder of the political audacity that Liberia went through, which is very concerning. And I was very happy that our president was able to address those issues that was neglected by the CDC government. Now, here's my first question. What is the TRC, or what did the TRC do to avoid disparate action that had disparate impact on a particular tribe who were triggered due to no fault of their own during the civil war in Liberia? That's my first question. And secondly, my second question is, did the TRC recommend an economic recovery process and a war crime lamented punitive process in their final report?
Thank you. Commissioner Washington, did you understand his question?
I think I understood the second question a little bit, but the first question completely, I really don't understand what he was talking about. People who were persecuted because of the tribes. I didn't get a full question. It wasn't clear to me.
Okay, so just respond to what you understand, so that way we can make progress.
Okay, so he talked about the economic crime, portion of it, right? And what recommendations?
You was asking whether there were any recommendations.
Yes. Yes, there are recommendations for addressing economic issues, especially economic disparities, and also we have a list of individuals and also corporations that committed economic crimes against the Liberian people. But let me advise him, if you go online, you can go on Google on the internet and just type in www.TRC final report. The whole report will come up and you just go through and go to the recommendations and read the recommendations. Everything there will have more than 200 recommendations, all are there. It will help, answer, and clarify a lot of things for you.
Thank you, Commissioner Massa Washington. And then just to inform the public, next weekend, next Saturday, we're going to have the former chairman of the TRC, Truth and Reconciliation Commission, Chairman Jerome Verdier, will be here. similar to what we're having right now. You'll also be available to answer some of the questions. And he will be also here to shine light some of the things that we should expect. Not only he is a former commissioner, he's also a lawyer who understands the Liberian law and international laws as well. So he's going to be here. People are still calling, but I'm not going to take any more calls because the commissioner, she has to go. But Commissioner Washington, I can't thank you enough. I want to know, do you have anything to close? So we can, we will let you go, but we're still going to be here for another 5 or 10 minutes to hear from people, their reactions.
So I would just like to say thank you, Sekou, and also to Moses and your other panelists for hosting me. I appreciate it. I consider SKTV home. You've been knowing me forever, ever from the time we used to be on our listserv way back.
Forever.
We have come a long way. Yeah, you were one of those who were defending me when I came on the attack. You always being that fair and decent person. I appreciate it. We should have more of these kinds of conversations so we can really understand. Like, for example, you raised a very good concerns. I didn't even know that people are discussing in the community, especially in the Mandingo community, or my role that I'm playing in these different trials as a witness. Like I said, as an expert witness, I'm only called as an expert witness on Liberia, on the country condition and the status. I don't know any of these people. I've never met them. Koshai, Konji, I don't know them at all. So I was not called to testify against them and what they allegedly did, because that would be a complete, it's not going to happen. I'm not going to agree. I don't know them. I was nowhere there in FOIA. But every time I go, I'm called to give specific my testimony on the country condition, what was happening at the time, what was Liberia at the time, what were some of the laws that were broken, what happened with the CP, what happened with the TRC, what did I see, what were my own experience, and what do I think that people need to do to move Liberia forward. So those were my testimony. That's why they call it expert witness. So I was not testifying against any individual directly. I don't know them. I was not there when anything happened. No. Yeah. But let me just say quickly here for you all. I'm glad now that we're making progress to bring the War Crimes Code. It will help put a lot of things to bed, but most importantly, it will help those who have been accused to have their day in court, to either exonerate themselves or to explain why they did, what they were accused of doing. So that is a good process, and I'm glad that they reached a point where now they want to do that. So let me just say, Sekou, it's been...
And I want you to know why you be closing that. We stay on the radio in Liberia.
Okay. It's been 35 years. It's been 35 years since the Liberian Civil War started on December 24th, 1989. It's been 35 years. It's been 20 plus years, almost 21 years, since the war ended in August of 2003, when they went to Accra, Ghana on August 18 and signed the CPA document that officially ended the war. It's been 15 years since the TRC gave her final report and presented it to the people of Liberia. Sekou, it's time to lay the ghost to rest. It's time to address this whole issue of the War Crimes Code of accountability so that we may be able to be done with this, put in some corrective mechanism, and help to move our country forward. We need to come together as one people and move our country forward. We can't remain in this state of limbo because people feel that the rights were abused and nothing happened. Okay, so that's why that is very important. So let me just state quickly here, so people understand why it's important to have accountability and why it is important to have the War Crimes Code. In the TRC process, we identified 23 categories of gross violation of the human rights of other people that took place. Okay? 1, forced displacement. Everybody was displaced all over the place. Killings, assault, abduction. They were forcibly abducting people, carried in different places. Looting, forced labor, property destruction, robbery, torture, arbitrary detention, detaining people against their will, rape, exposure, and deprivation. They expose people to all sort of inhumane condition, sexual abuse, extortion, forced recruitment. They were forcing people to be fighters and all of that. Missing. Today, we have family members that are missing. I have 2 cousins that are missing today. Gang rape, ingesting taboo items. They were taboo items, mean they were forcing people to eat and drink things that human beings are not supposed to do. That they were forcing people to eat poo, forcing people to drink pee. And some people testified that the fighters then break the glass bottle and tell them to chew it. They were forcing people to eat sand. They were forcing people to eat mud. Okay? Then sexual slaving. They were forcing, people, wives, taking them from the line, people, young daughters and stuff, and forcing them to be their wives in sexual slavery. Then cannibalism, some of the people were eating human beings. We saw some of the picture, they were eating human beings. Then drugging. Some of them were drugging civilians. So you are a fighter, you're taking your drugs and you're fighting your war. Why are you drugging civilians? So they were drugging people against their will. And then, of course, there were multiple rapes. Some people, they raped them more than 2, 3, 4, 5 times. And they also rape men. People need to understand why it is true that the over majority of women suffer rape. They were the main victims of rape, but they also rape men. They rape some men in front of their family, in front of their wives, to destroy the manhood of the family. Then amputation. They amputated people limbs, cut people hair off, cut some of their fingers, toes, body parts and stuff. So these are the categories of gross violations of human rights that the TRC discovered during our process that has led to some of those recommendations calling for accountability. And one of those recommendations is the recommendation calling for a war crimes code and economic crimes code. Because during our work, we found out that economic crimes code was a catalyst for war crimes code, meaning that some of the gross violation of human rights that took place was because it was based upon economics, like for example, forced labor. They were forcing people to toll and load them, walking, 50, 60 miles with heavy equipment on their head and stuff, because, they were selling these properties and stuff. So I just wanted to let the Liberian people know why it is important that we have this war crimes code, and then to get this chapter over with so we can all be able to move on as one people.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Washington. Like I said, from time to time, keep your doors open for us. We're going to be reaching out. Because we didn't even go 1% of things that we want to know about, because the TRC document, the process was huge. It was huge. And the good thing is, you are one of those people, without looking on paper, can recall most of the things. Because I've been following you. I've been saying, when we were, that time Facebook was not anywhere, nowhere to be. There was no Facebook. We used to be arguing, making points. You went on a huge attack. A lot of time on the list there, someone got to come, to set the record straight on some of these things that we know about you and stuff like that. So, Liberians need your expertise, your information, your knowledge now than ever before. So please keep your doors open. We'll be reaching out from time to time so you can be available to answer some of the questions, where you will spend the whole day on the whole TRC understanding. Because I've read it, but I can't finish reading it.
Yeah,
because
it's a whole lot.
Yeah, it's a whole lot. I've been reading it for the longest. Yeah, sometimes I got interrupted with some other stuff, so I can put it back and then come back again and start reading it again. So, but I want to say thank you to you. And unless Mong want to add something, other than that, we can, say thank you to you, and then we will still be here for just another maybe 10 or 15 minutes to just conclude. So, but thank you so much. We appreciate your time.
Indeed, it was a great interaction. Yeah, thanks for showing up. I haven't seen anyone from the TRC that went in depth. It's like you were actually part of the process, because it's like the thing of here. You don't, like Sekou said it right. You don't reference the document, like it just happened. You can just espouse on this thing, like it just come like how they call it. It just come naturally, spontaneously for you when you're addressing these issues.
Because he's a journalist. That's the reason.
It's my journalistic training.
Yeah, he's a journalist.
Yeah, she can just and just go without referencing the document. It's just like a second nature to her. That's just how it's in. That's why I keep listening rather than asking. I asked the question that I needed to ask, and she gave like a real expose, a total understanding and breakdown for the average person to
And
understand.
I was also one of the commissioners who was on a report writing committee too, so I also helped to write the report.
Oh, okay. I see.
I told you she's a writer, so she
Okay.
knows exactly what's going on. Yeah, well, thank you so much, Commissioner. We really appreciate it.
Okay.
All right. So, Monk, my man, yeah, let me just update you. Since you mentioned people to contribute in a minute, when you said it, but before you did, I told you that somebody has sent $30 to us, and then after you made an announcement, somebody also, the last name is Mo. That person sent $20 as well, and then so that's two, right?
Yep.
That's two, and then let me just make sure you get all the. Okay, not there. So yeah, and then another person sent $55 to the Zelle, so that three people donated to us. Yeah. So, Monk, I want to say a big thank you to you and Steve in Truth FM for continuing to air SKTV on this Saturday. It was a rewarding conversation.
Indeed.
And I think the people of Liberia, they enjoy it. And I believe a lot of more people will watch it again. So the good thing about these people appearing on the show is that they are not speaking on the say or hearsay. They are the architect of the document.
Yep.
They're the architects, and not only that, they had conversations with these people themselves, including Prince Johnson. There's a video, SKTV, I'll play it. There's a video where it was like a Q&A between Commissioner Master Washington and Prince Johnson during the TRC hearing. I'll try to play the video tonight on SKTV so you guys can follow and listen. You'll be surprised. You will hear some shocking revelation from Prince Johnson himself, about what he did.
Segu, one thing, there are circumstances that can bring out the true nature of a human being. Liberia's civil crisis, not like we're threatening another opposing force from outside of Liberia. It was a civil crisis. Yeah. And when you hear some of the testimonials coming from people about their experience, you won't believe that an average Liberian would do that to another Liberian. So for the people who oppose this war crime, I really don't know where their heart is or which planet they live on. Because if you hear this kind of atrocity and don't want to bring about a system of fairness and justice and accountability, I don't know. It's very hard to comprehend. And that way I can say sometimes, I say we are cursed as a country because you do things to your fellow. Let's assume I was part of the revolution. Okay, let's say I was holding gun. But just because you're holding gun, the reason you held gun was to accomplish a particular aim and objective. Why would the ordinary person got to do with your anger or your resentment? Like that, the description she gave, it said the true fire on their houses, and why in the process of coming here, that the sky was literally burning because the only image you can recall. Why would you want to treat innocent people like that just because you're fighting war? It was a choice to hold gun.
Yeah.
Come on. I mean, that country, I don't know. And another thing I realized, right? I've been going through this document for a very, very long time. And I want most of the warlords in Liberia, they fail to realize. When you went to Accra, that 2003 Akosombo Peace Accord, that's where I believe that they will have to expand on the TRC. Because, you see, the TRC were giving you a mandate. Go and investigate. Go and get the truth so that report is unbiased. If you fall within the land, they're coming after you with their report and their recommendation. But when you go into a negotiation like a peace accord where all the rebel leaders assemble in Accra, it was all about armed twisting. It was all about negotiation. It was all about putting your own interest first. So, for the fact that the comprehensive Accra accord, that's what brought about the TRC. You can see where the collision will come from between the negotiation, political negotiation for the sake of peace versus people who were just sent to go and find out the truth. That's where the problem is. And our Supreme Court, to some extent, try to play politics with the whole TRC and the Accra Peace Accord. When they start talking about it's not constitutional, like, no. Liberia law does not exceed international law. And she talked something about international jurisdiction. I'm like, you see, our people don't read history at time. Liberia is not only part of the UN. Liberia was part of the League of Nations. The League of Nations was created since 1914, after during World War I. It was years before even UN came into being. So if you are a signatory to UN peace treaty and all the international accord, how can you come and say Liberia constitution remains so? Look, bro, you're joking. All those stuff you're talking about in Ghana concerning negotiation about bringing peace, that's one. It was negotiation. When it comes to war and economic crime, when it comes to human rights violation, they are universal. You are not immune. You were never given amnesty by anybody. So if you are in Liberia and you think that you are this warlord, you came in, you won't be the judge and the jury at the same time, giving yourself amnesty, that's a lie. It would not fly. You waste your time.
You're right. You're right, 100%. Let's take this call. I think this guy's calling from Europe, so let's take him. Then we will call it a day. I think that's Abraham. I don't know, from Sweden or Switzerland, somewhere around there. Hello, Abraham? Where are you calling from? Norway or Sweden or Switzerland? I forgot. Norway, okay. Yeah, go ahead, Abraham.
Yeah, thanks so much for taking the call, because you said you were not taking calls anymore.
Yeah, we're leaving now.
That guy said he doesn't support the TRC. Now, when Commissioner Massa was talking, she said something that actually fits that guy who spoke. That the ignorance in Liberia is so much.
No, we don't do that. We don't do that one here. You don't come and attack other person for their opinion. Yeah, well, what I'm telling you, just say your own. You don't attack other people for their opinion. I'm listening to you. If you can just talk your own and forget with the other guy. Then in my opinion, you can reference his opinion, but you don't use word on him. Okay. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead and make your point.
Want to make money and what have you. But you forget to know the Scandinavian countries, which one I'm living in. Is still running behind warlords. Punishing them, they are still investigating them. Why do you think that around the globe people are still running behind warlords? You think anybody in Finland wants to make money? You think anybody needs money from Norway from persecute people? No. It is because this is universal law. The day President William was taking office, that same day, humanitarian organizations were writing him letters, asking him, in an effort for you to have law in your country, President, this is what you need to do. These are the things people don't understand.
All right.
So, I also wanted to appeal to you. If you can also bring Senator Snow, the thing he said about America, so we can hear from him too why he said those things. I beg you.
I don't know whether he would be I don't know whether he would be willing to come, but he's been here before. Listen. Senator Snow being here before. We have his contact. We can invite him again. I'm not sure if he'll be willing to come. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think I want you to make an effort, because I don't know what more he wants America to do for the people. He's a lawmaker. I wonder if he ever visited his corporate investment policy, development, I mean, all these kind of things. I wonder if he ever visited them. Every year, America will publish their report on investment climate index. I don't know whether he can read those things and know how Liberia is looking. What more he wants America to do?
All right, bro. Thank you so much.
Okay, you're welcome.
All right. Mom.
Make sure you build your life.
Man, so
yeah, we'll leave it there for the day. I mean,
today.
It was a great show. It was informative, and
yeah, to the 3 people that donated, I want to say thank you. We don't want to skip that.
Yeah.
We say thank you very much for supporting SKTV as always. So yesterday, Friday, we had 3 people, and now we have another 3 people. That's 6 people.
They will make up next week. But next week, I told you fire coming with for them.
Thank you, everybody, for your support and your contribution to SKTV. We really, really appreciate it. Yeah, my man, we can't take any more comment. I apologize.
Yeah, man, that call your day. Today's the weekend.
Yeah. So the person calling, I'm sorry. We're leaving now. This was not even my show. I just came to finish it because she has something going on. You have to leave. Otherwise, I wasn't going to be here today, sir. But thank you, guys. We really appreciate your time. And we appreciate your support. And those of you who are here throughout to the end of the show, you are the MVP. You are the best people. Appreciate you. Let's call it a day. We'll see you tomorrow.